They've continued to work and grow and implement their program and are setting the foundation for what they want to get accomplished here over the next couple of seasons.
I think one of the most intriguing teams this offseason is the Miami Dolphins.
The Dolphins have the capital to do whatever they want.
They're competing and building a culture.
I believe in team. I would say that. If you want to strive to do something great as a group, you got to work together.
You have a plan, you stay true to the plan, you execute the plan. The Dolphins, this is how you turn around a franchise, like this.
We're trying to build a team that's going to win right now, and we'll be very aggressive.
Welcome to the field, your Miami Dolphins.
We're looking for guys who are tough, who are smart, who are competitive, love to play.
They have landed some big fish. Love what the Miami Dolphins did. You're trying to build something there.
Patrick throws to the end zone. It is Parker. Darnold never saw the pressure coming, and he's leading. Siki wide open. Touchdown.
Let's have some fun and play together, man. Win on three, win on me. 1, 2, 3, win.
If you can get a group of young men to band together, to believe in one another, to practice and prepare at a high level, then you'll win ball games.
Big man, touchdown, picked off by Bobby McCain.
What's good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we're back here with another one. As always, I'm joined by the Jason Taylor to my Zach Thomas, EMdolphinfan. What's good, homie?
Man, what's going on, homie?
Man, just another day, just another dollar, bro.
Same here, bro. Same here, bro.
Same issue. So, guys, I just
Fins
want
Nation. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, bro. Fins Nation, what's good?
You know, we gotta shout the family out. You already know. Fins Nation, what's good? Let's get it, baby. Let's get it.
Guys, I just wanted to apologize for our tardiness. We're still actually waiting on Raekwon Davis, so he'll join hopefully as we're live and as we get into a little bit. But let's start introducing everyone who we got. So obviously, y'all know who he is. This is the first collab between all of us. So, without further ado, y'all already know who he is. Please welcome to the stream, DouglieDoWrong. What's good, buddy?
What is up, fellas? God, that intro just, it just gets you ready so much for the season. I love it.
You see those goosebumps? You see those goosebumps? Man. Oh, my God.
I literally was sitting here just staring at my screen, and I forgot that I was, like, waiting to go live. I was just like, oh, man, I love this team.
Exciting times, man.
Absolutely.
Happy to have you, man. I appreciate you taking the time to come on, man.
This is a long time coming, and I'm just super excited to be here.
For sure. Happy to have you.
Absolutely.
And Jason Sarney from Fin Maniacs. What's good, homie? Becoming a little bit of a regular on this channel. How's it going, brother?
Going well, guys. Happy to be here. How's everybody doing?
Outstanding.
Living the life, brother.
Always, always.
And the triple OG, the man who handed EM's behind to him on a platter. Mr. BallGame, what's good?
What's good, baby? Hey, guys, how y'all doing, man?
Yo, BallGame,
was good, man.
Was that hat $40? Did that hat cost you $40?
Oh, that's cute. That's cute, Doug. That's real cute. That's real cute, Doug. Okay.
It might well be. What's up, Fins Nation? How y'all doing out there tonight? What's up, everybody in the chat?
Guys, before we get into our our training camp predictions, I wanted to get everyone's thought on a topic that was kind of hot yesterday on Twitter. I don't know if you guys remember, but a couple weeks back, I actually referenced this guy, Logan Lane. I actually referenced him on a tweet that he made, and we pulled him up on the show a couple weeks back, and it's crazy to see him kind of make the rounds yesterday on social media. And the whole basic thing was Jarvis Landry, about how Jarvis didn't want to be traded. It was basically about him and Adam Gase. He even goes a little bit further and tells a story about how Gase appeared to have gone in the way of a deal that would have brought Odell Beckham to Miami, though he does point out that it was in the early stages, premature stages of being talked about. It was a pretty hot topic on Twitter yesterday. Would you guys take Jarvis Landry back in Miami? And I just wanted to go through each one of you guys. I just wanted to hear each one of you one by one. Would you guys bring Jarvis Landry back? And what do you guys think about Adam Gase getting in the way? And he basically got his way with Odell like he wanted to get with Le'Veon Bell, right? He wanted to stop the Le'Veon Bell deal. It got pushed through. It looks like he stopped an Odell Beckham deal from coming through. So I want to get your guys' opinion on Odell Beckham potentially, that deal that Adam Gase stepped in, and as well as would you bring Jarvis back? And I guess we'll start from the top and work our way down. So, what's your opinion?
Man, I've always been a fan of Jarvis Landry. His game, when he was here as a member of the Miami Dolphins, I was a huge Jarvis Landry fan. It saddened me to see him go when he and Gase couldn't come to terms, and he was ultimately traded or whatnot. But it's not necessarily a reflection on the player. I just think at this stage of our quote unquote rebuild, I'll say this: if I'm not going to go out there and aggressively pursue Jarvis Landry, but I would entertain the idea of bringing him back. So I think at the stage of this rebuild, where we're at right now with our quote unquote rebuild, he's got a $14-15 million price tag as well. His contract. So you have to take that into account. But it's not an indictment on the player. I have the utmost respect for Jarvis Landry as a player, but I just don't know if I would necessarily, that's a tough one for me. And how old is Jarvis Landry? He's about 28 now, 27, 28. So he's getting up there in age a little bit. But again, like I said, I respect his game, but I just don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say I would, aggressively, pursue him and bring him back to our organization at this point in time.
Dougley, what are your thoughts on the whole situation?
Well, from jump, with Adam Gase and especially Tannenbaum, because it was the trifecta, but it really wasn't a trifecta because you had Gase, Tannenbaum, and Grier. And now today, Grier's getting the blunt of all the bad decisions that were made over those 2 years because of those two guys. When this is a prime example of Grier had no option in this because Gase had control of the 53-man roster. Tannenbaum had control of his contract. Any sane, logical human being would have tried to re-sign Jarvis Landry before his last year, and we probably could have got him for about $11 million a year instead of his asking price and his eventual franchise tag of about $14 million.
Right.
When he got traded, I was bummed. I wanted him to stay. I knew he was going to ask for a buttload of money again. That's why they should have re-signed him before his final year, like everyone else is doing. But if he wants to come back, I would definitely take him back because I think him with Brian Flores would be a good combination because Brian Flores will know how to talk to him, make sure he doesn't let these certain things cause flags, unnecessary roughness, all of these different things. Because if you look at certain games, the Tennessee Titan game, that Houston Texan game where we went up 41-0 before halftime, a lot of the points were scored by him, and a lot of the dynamic plays were scored by him. He's a super dynamic wide receiver, would be a perfect pairing with Devontae Parker and Preston Williams. So, yeah, I definitely bring him back. But I don't know if I'm bringing him back as much as he's making now. But, yeah, if there's a way to bring him back, I would definitely bring him back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, I agree. I think, $14 million, but he's basically the best possession. In my opinion, he's the best possession receiver in football, especially out of the slot. Jason, what are your thoughts on it?
To piggyback on what both of the guys said, EM and Doug, both I agree with a lot of the components of each of those comments. Now, there's a lot of things that go with bringing Jarvis Landry back in, not just the money. It's what you're going to have to do with everybody else on the team in terms of the target shares, giving other people money in terms of other receivers, other offensive linemen. Eventually, there's so many rookies and free agents from last year that were undrafted free agents and even this season that you're going to have to pay if you want them to be on the team still. So we can't really be talking about bringing people back in regardless of the talent. Both EM and Doug, you're exactly right. Massively talented, probably, as you said, Reason, one of the best, if not the best slot possession receivers in the game. But, they're all kind of alphas, Devontae, Preston, Jarvis. So if it's 3rd and 4, in the fourth quarter with minute and whatever left, in the red zone, it's football. Whoever gets the ball gets the ball. I get it. It's not like it's a 3-pointer when you're down 2 in the NBA, but, these receivers are all cut from the same mold, those 3 that we're naming. So I think that the shares could be an issue. The money could be an issue. In a perfect world, someone tells me, hey, 4th and a 7th and Raekwon or whoever linebacker for Jarvis Landry. Maybe. But again, there could be problems in a year and a half, 2 years, then game 1, 2, 3 when everything's rosy. But then what happens when Jarvis does what he did and a propensity to do, maybe get a little hot-headed, a couple of penalties, regardless of what Brian Flores could do. So I agree 95% with what both of you guys said, but there is that 5%. It's a new, fresh team. Let's turn the page. There's a lot of guys in there who are working to be on the team. There's like 90 guys right now that you're naming, and you got to cut it down to 53, 55 guys plus the practice squad. So to bring back in guys that are going to cost you what 4 guys can cost you now, I don't know. Not on board 100%, but no one's wrong. Great player, but no one's wrong. But,
the alpha is a good point because, look what happens right now. You got 2 massive alphas in Cleveland, and whether you want to put it, I put it more on coaching, wherever you want to put it on coaching, or you want to put it on the receivers or whatever. For whatever reason, it really didn't go as fluid as a lot of us expected it to go last year. And now they've added Austin Hooper, who's going to want targets too because he got paid because he wants targets. So it's going to be interesting over there. But a food for thought a little bit. When you look at what we're going to be running with Gailey, 2 to Jarvis Landry, because you just said 3rd and 4th. And what's crazy is when you said 3rd and 4th, I guess because my experience as a Dolphin fan watching Jarvis, my first instinct was I'm throwing that ball to Jarvis on 3rd and 4th because I just know how sure hands those are over the middle, man, for that short gain. BallGame, what are your thoughts on it?
I love Jarvis Landry. So I think one of the worst days for me as a Dolphins fan was when he was shipped off by Gase. Took a lot for me to try to understand mentally why a coach would take a guy that did as much as he did on the field for us, and because of his ego, decide to let him go when all you got to do is sit down with the guy and just come to a common accord. But I had to let Jarvis go for a reason, and unfortunately at this point, bringing Jarvis back wouldn't work for me in terms of I feel like it would stunt the growth and development of the younger prospects that we have. We went young and trying to go through this rebuild process for a reason. I think we have a solidified alpha in the group with Devontae Parker, and bringing anybody in, even if it's an Odell Beckham at this point, I think I said, as we were talking the other day, I think it messes with the mindset. Wide receivers are divas, man. I don't care what anybody say. They can act as tough as they want, but at the end of the day, those guys are divas, man, and they get in their feelings real quick. And unfortunately, that affects the guys playing. And the last thing we need is for Devontae, coming off of the season he had last year, to be in his head about what his role is at this point when he worked his way through all of what I guess he went through to get back to being the guy. And then you bring another guy back in to have him split what he would have been getting in terms of the lion's share of the reception. So I don't want to mess with that. It would take it. Now, if we were talking D-Hop, that's different. But and I love Landry to death. But if we were talking, you know what I mean. We give the differences in it. But I believe combined between Albert Wilson and Jakeem Grant, you can get what Jarvis Landry does. So without
a more explosive version.
Yeah. And keep things, you know what I'm saying, trending upward with the development of Williams and things of that nature. So I wouldn't bring him back, man. That ship has sailed. I loved him. Like I said, he's always a Dolphin to me. Gase did him dirty, like he did with Ajayi, but at the same time, man, we're going in a different direction. And you know what I'm saying, unfortunately, nah, I'm good on that.
All right, so
$15 million price tag.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That
Right?
too.
That's the thing. That's the thing. You know what? We'll get into the predictions right now because I know it's time sensitive just for DDW here. And then I got a couple news things we can go over after we do the predictions instead of doing everything before the topic like we usually do. I got a couple more things to go over news-wise at the end. We'll save those for the end. But let's just get into the training camp predictions. Again, hopefully Great One's going to join us. Still haven't heard back from him. He must be sleeping. So I'll hit it first. So basically, guys, what we did was we went through and we did 2 predictions each person. We had 12. Right now, as it stands, we'll do 10. I won't go over Great One's predictions because it's just not my place. That's his stuff, so he's not on the stream. So we'll start off with mine. So my first prediction is that Kirk Merritt's going to win a roster spot. So I've been pretty, as Jason knows, I drafted him in our dynasty league. So I'm all in on this, and that was like a month ago.
You got me really worked up on that now. You got to start with that.
So I think he's just too big of a freak. You're talking about a 49. It's been listed as a 49-inch vertical. 4.33 speed. The talent is not a question because had his character been a little bit better, this guy Justin Herbert would have been throwing passes to this guy. And the whole argument that Herbert had no receivers would pretty much probably be by the wayside right now because he would have had a speedster like this. I've watched 4 games of this guy, Alabama, against Georgia. And then I watched his 2 years, 2018, 2019 against Texas State because that's the Arkansas State rivalry. And he absolutely dominated in those rivalry games. It wasn't even close. I know there's character concerns, but I think he's just too big of a freak athletically. I've even told Jason and I've told EM, I think this is this year's version of Preston Williams, and it's really rare when you find a UDFA that can be a top 2 receiver like Preston was, but it's even rarer when you find another guy that you can add to that core who could eventually one day be your Albert Wilson replacement. And that's what I see the potential of this guy. So we'll go through you guys' thoughts one by one on that prediction. So, EM, where are you at with Kirk Merritt?
Man, I'm with you as far as his skill set. We've talked about this, privately and publicly. Reason. I love this kid's physical ability, crazy athleticism. But I'm just not willing to go as far to say that he will definitely have I want them to find a role for him because I want them to get in some capacity to get that kind of athleticism on the field. But I'm just not sure with this COVID-19 issue that's plaguing every team. I just can't go there and say that I think he's going to absolutely, find a roster spot on the 55-man roster. But, I hope they find a spot for him because that's too much athleticism to be sitting on a practice squad. Absolutely too much. But with that being said, the kid is so athletic. I'm sure they have that similar mindset. I'm sure they're sitting there talking amongst each other. We got to find some spot for this kid because this rare ability that this kid has. And but with my boy Mac Hollins, on the roster in that wide receiver room.
Oh, here we go.
I don't know. I'm not willing to go as far as to say I would guarantee him a roster spot.
Mac Hollins is going to be rubbing down Merritt's calves after every practice, bro.
But I will say this: I'm with you with the ability, with the skill set. That's and if they implement the spread concepts that we talked about publicly and privately, I think he would be, be ideal in that format. But I don't know, man. It's a lot going on outside of football that's going to potentially impact these guys, these undrafted, these UDFAs, and players, these later round picks as well. Is going to impact their their situations in terms of being able to
South Florida and all of that.
Yeah. So I don't know, but I hope so. I will say, again, I hope so, because that's tons of potential. But we'll see how that unfolds.
Dougley?
Yeah, I could definitely see it happening. We got 11 wide receivers on the roster right now. Some of them practice squad eligible. Some of them, like Ricardo Lewis, probably not going to make the team. But with the style of offense that Chan Gailey's going to be running, a lot of base 3 wide receiver sets, you're going to need some depth, because we don't know how certain receivers are going to be bouncing back from injury. Preston Williams, Jakeem Grant, and we don't even know. Albert Wilson took a huge pay cut to stick with this team. So we'll see, but I could see him. I could see him making the roster. Like I said, they're going to need some depth at wide receiver in this Chan Gailey offense, and I could see him being one of those guys. Like you said, he has the potential to be another Preston Williams, where he's undrafted, does his thing, and hopefully we get some type of preseason. But training camp kind of turns the coaches' heads. That's the thing that sucks too. These undrafted guys, especially at the wide receiver front, because we have about 5 dynamic, maybe even 6 dynamic wide receivers right now. They need to turn some heads during training camp to try to make this team, because there might not even be a preseason.
Yeah. And they need those 2 games more than anyone, right? So just to show off. BallGame, where are you at on the Kirk Merritt will win a roster spot?
I like the guy. Freak of nature, in terms of his athletic ability. The problem I have is how much we really going to get to see of him. Because unless they just go completely with practice-related reps heavy for the ones, and then you just put those guys in those 2 preseason games and forego allowing the ones and some of the tools that they've already got tabbed from last season, which is probably what I would do. I would go with seeing what I got to work with, or what we can pluck from the UDAs and the late round guys and things of that nature, guys that are on the fringe of possibly not making the squad, and let those guys go out there and compete in those 2 games. Because at this point right now, Preston Williams is going to get a spot. Devontae's going to get a spot. Wilson re-signed for lower money, so they got to give him a shot at least. Jakeem got a deal, so that's 4 right there. Hearns did another deal, so that's 5. And then depending on how many
Matt Collins.
Oh, yeah.
Don't forget about
he
Matt
don't have a
Collins.
contract yet, though, does he?
I'm not sure.
So he's gonna be one of them guys in them 2 games that need to go out there and prove it, because he got to prove he can stay healthy too. So and depending on how many Shane gonna take, that's how many he gonna hold over. So we don't know how many he's gonna actually take into the regular season. But I would use those 2 games as their their audition, and then go from there, and then see what you got. But Merrick's definitely one of the guys that I hope can break through and be, show his talent early, so that they go ahead and say, what, we even if we don't see enough of him right now, we know what he can do, because we showed us flashes, and we'll just go ahead and just hold on to him and don't practice squad him, because if he hit practice squad, he gone.
Right.
Yeah.
He's gone.
For sure.
Definitely.
He'll be a Patriot the next day.
Oh, yeah, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. So they got to find a spot for him. So he's probably one of the guys right now that's probably more so a little bit better in terms of actually making the roster, as opposed to being any other situation outside of practice squad, any other situation like practice squad, things like that, because you don't want to let a guy like that get out your organization,
Right.
And the more speed and athleticism you can have at the position, the better off you are to be able to do a lot more intricate and over the top things on offense as well. So I like him. I think he'll be all right. I think he'll do well. And I agree with you that he should probably warrant a spot, just based off of his tape right now alone. Gives you the indication that they brought him in for a specific reason. I don't even know how he didn't get drafted, but at the same time, we always find diamonds, and he's definitely one that I think is going to be a real good one for us. So,
Jason, where are you at?
Yeah, pretty much where everybody else is. And reason I'm a Kirk Merritt guy. Very surprised that he went undrafted ball game as well. And I do think that you got to get this guy on the team. He's gone if he gets to the practice squad. He will be playing football for somebody on a 53-man roster. Now, for me, you mentioned the 4 wide receivers that just, you think of right away: Devontae, Preston, Wilson, and Grant. Now, you're going to have guys who are fighting for roles who are some veterans, Hearns, Isaiah Ford, you mentioned Matt Collins, Gary Jennings Jr., These are guys that you know what you're going to get. Like, you know what their ceiling is, arguably. You pretty much know that they're here. But Merritt is a guy who you have no idea what he could do. And even if he has 2 games, 1 game, no games, what he does have is he's a gym rat. He's jumping over refrigerators, basically. I mean, this is a guy that is he's going to turn coaches' heads. And then whatever he could do when you get on a field, he's just going to be too talented to let go. And I forgot who said it exactly. I think, with the 3 receiver sets, I think, Doug, you said that.
Did, yeah.
You need the depth. And, you look what happened with Preston last year, should not have been returning punts, but that's a whole other conversation. But you need depth. And I do think that my whole theme this year, reason is I think that, it's youth movement and really finding the monetary plays that are contract friendly, youth friendly. And you know what? You got to develop talent. We were just talking about, you let Jarvis Landry go. We've let so many people go, but you got to develop homegrown talent, drafted, undrafted. You can't let this kid go. They probably will find a spot for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree with you, man. Wholeheartedly, bro. Good points on all account by everyone. So until EM comes back, we'll skip him. You know what? I'm going to save Doug's one for the end because that's going to be really good. And then, so right now I'll put Dougley. I believe Raekwon Davis will win a starting spot over Devon Godchaux.
Yeah, he's just super dynamic. And I think that, honestly, you saw the excitement from Brian Flores when we got him. And this is the thing, too. Just a little side note. We missed on J.K. Dobbins by 1 pick, right? Mm-hmm. Baltimore Ravens took J.K. Dobbins, literally the pick before us. Then our pick, we take Raekwon Davis. And you saw Brian Flores. He was pumped. He was super happy. I honestly think that he wanted Raekwon Davis from jump, and he was afraid the Baltimore Ravens were going to take him the pick before. And the fact that they took that running back, J.K. Dobbins, who was a good running back, and I wanted him, I think that's why he was so pumped. But he's super dynamic. In 2017, he had that crazy good year, and then he kind of fell off. And I honestly think Brian Flores is the perfect coach to rev up that engine and keep it going and have this kid at a constant pace of playing. Now, Devon Godchaux, he's on his last year. He said he'll play this year out. He's not one to sit out for a contract. He's not one to beg for it. If they want to resign me, they'll resign me. I honestly think being that, Brian Flores didn't bring him in here, and the love that you saw for, Davis, I honestly think that if they can get the best out of Davis and they can get that motor going again, I honestly think he's going to overtake him, and it's going to be Wilkins and Davis as the starting defensive tackles.
And what are you thinking on that? We'll start from the bottom. Jason.
I love what you said, Doug. I agree. And I remember, one of my most vivid memories of this draft, watching the teleconference, was Coach Flo. I don't know what he was doing, riding a semi-tractor trailer.
Yeah.
Whatever he was doing, I wanted to be in his zen flow, because if the head coach is thrilled with the pick, that just means volumes for the kid and what the coach can do with the kid. Now, to piggyback of what you just said, Doug, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And Davin Godchaux, one heck of a human being, heck of a teammate. Now, something that has nothing to do with Davin other than his talent, he's represented by Drew Rosenhaus, which means his wallet's going to be fat. So that does not mean anything other than Drew calling him up and say, by the way, team is offering you $75 million, 47 guaranteed, pack your bags. And that's going to happen. He's going to go. And the Dolphins are going to get a compensation pick.
Yep.
So what you do is exactly what you said, Doug. You play the guy that the coach wants. You get the snap counts up. And if it's week 5, you trade him, Davin. Or you just wait it out and you see what you can do, and then you play it out. But I love what you said there, and I'm wholeheartedly agreeing with you.
Ball game. Where you at?
I think the enthusiasm he showed for the pick was genuinely a lot, because of the fact that Flores is a defensive guy. Hell, I would have jumped through the roof too if I can get my guys. If my guy's still sitting on the board and I get my guy, I'm gonna be happy too. I think the unfortunate thing for Gottschalk is that he came around and he had a bunch of village idiots coaching him, and they didn't do him any justice because he doesn't fit what we're trying to do at this point. And his strengths and weaknesses, visibly at this point, are magnified in this defense, and he just doesn't work for us. He's not versatile enough to do the things that we need to do. So it's not a slight on him, you know what I mean? And players don't always fit schemes, and players don't always fit teams. So if we can get something for him, the sooner they can get Raekwon up to speed and get him at least understanding, if even if it's only 40% of what his overall role would be, that's enough to be able to deal with the talent they got around. That's enough to be able to give him a selective job for this year, and you can let Gottschalk go. You know what I'm saying, and get something for him out the door, because somebody will come and call it. PF, what's them jokers' name? The stats guys. What are their names? PFF. Yeah, they didn't seem to have a bad rating on him. Him and Wilkins at the end of the season together. You know what I'm saying, as a duo. So take Wilkins out of the equation. He was the other half of it. Somebody somewhere is looking at those stats as well, thinking, man, this guy can help us if the Dolphins are willing to let him go. So get what you can get for him and then move on from him, because we're not going to pay him the money he wants, that's for sure. That's why he was feeling, he's listening to Drew, like you said, Jason. He's listening to Drew saying, you know what, hey, man, we're going to be able to get you some money somewhere. Somebody's going to be willing to pay for you. So you just hold tight, stay safe, and do what you got to do, you know what I'm saying, and don't get injured, you know what I mean? And your payday coming, which I believe it will, but it just won't be with us, which is not a bad thing. You know what I mean? You want to keep as many players as you can in your organization, but at the end of the day, if they just don't fit exactly what your coach envisions of his overall defensive scheme or offensive scheme, you gotta let him go. And he may very well just be the casualty of that whole situation. But whatever happens with him, whatever happens for him, he's in my prayers, because he's a Dolphin. Once a Dolphin, always a Dolphin. And I'm hoping huge success for Raekwon, though, because if he doesn't at least, like I said, 40 to 45% of what he could have been getting from Gottschalk, man, that's gonna be a struggle. But he's a rookie though, so and he's used to high pressure situations coming from where he plays. So that's kind of probably one of the other reasons why Flores took him, because he know that the guy's built for adversity, and the kid can take a lot on his shoulders. So and that's what you want. You want young guys that have been battle tested. So.
What are your thoughts on Douglie's prediction that Raekwon will win a starting job over Devon Gottschalk?
Oh, Raekwon Davis. Davis.
Yeah.
Raekwon Davis. Okay. Well, to be honest with you, in our base, I think all three of them will be, because in my opinion, based on my findings, our base is a 34, and that's a three-man line. So I think all of them be deployed in our base together. So, but in terms of winning a starting, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like I said, when you talk about starting,
I think he's basically saying
he's
basically saying that Raekwon's going to be the zero tech and Devon isn't going to be. That's basically what.
Oh, okay. I see. My bad. I'm sorry. Yeah. But I think that's a possibility. But I think all three players, because this is a staff that prioritizes versatility. So I think you'll see all three players in our base being deployed at the 0 tech, 3 tech, 5 tech, or whatnot, et cetera, et cetera. So, but in terms of him being the primary 0 tech, man, he is a rookie. We all know how high I am and how high I am.
Because I think I missed it. One of the main reasons Doug gave was because Devon Gottschalk, we all know it's basically on the wall. He's going out the door next year, and Raekwon's going to need as many snaps as possible.
Well, I don't think that they will prioritize Devon Godshaw. I think they'll let him walk, or he'll be traded if, at some point possibly. But we still have to play the 2020 season. So I think, again, like I said, in terms of starting, I just think all players have a versatile skill set, and they'll be deployed in like I said, from 0 to 5 techs in different situationally. So, but I could see him. It's a possibility. We all know how high I am on Raekwon Davis. I love that kid's skill set. I was just as high when we selected Tua. We all know how ecstatic I was when we selected Tua, but I was equally as excited when we selected Raekwon Davis. But it's a possibility. But I think all of them, in terms of that's why with this defense, because of the priority, because they prioritize versatility. All of these players, they just move each player around based off the opposing team's matchup on a week-to-week basis. So when you're talking about a player that's starting, I don't know if he's going to warrant that amount of snap counts at the 0 tech to the point where you can put that label on him as a quote-unquote starter, if that makes sense. So all of them, I think, will be deployed in that role. Again, it's a matchup-based defense. Brian Flores and not Patrick Graham. Well, when Patrick Graham was our defensive coordinator, they were, that's what they prioritize is versatility. So we'll see. It's a possibility. It's a strong possibility. But he's a rookie. There's a learning curve that comes with. Reason I talk about this publicly and privately. There's always a learning curve of rookies transitioning to the NFL. So anything is possible. But I just don't. I think going into the season, I think Godshaw will be deployed. If you're gonna say a quote unquote starter, I think Godshaw will be deployed at that 0 tech going into the season. I think, but that could change. That can all change. So we'll see.
Yeah, personally, I think he's just going to move all along. I think he's going to be primarily, you're going to see him shift along from the 0 tech to the 3 tech, all depending on the situation. In run downs, he's going to be a starter in that base run front for sure, I think, at least because, that was the whole reason we drafted him. He was an elite. He's an elite in the run game. And, you look at that first year, he was elite in terms of getting to the quarterback. He's familiar with the 3-4 2-gap scheme because that's basically what they run. I think Raekwon is going to be, we talk about Tua being, such a good scheme fit, which is probably sits on people's ears weird because it's a quarterback, but Raekwon Davis, when you look at what we're trying to do schematically, especially when it comes to the run stop sets, yeah, he's the perfect scheme fit. We all wanted this kid. BallGame was there. I basically said when that day 2 stream started, we got to take him at 56, and lo and behold, we took him at 56, man. And yeah. I think I've told EM this privately and again publicly. I think I mentioned it once on stream. If you look at his frame, if you look at what he is, he's very eerily similar to what Chris Jones was coming out, and
as well as Calais Campbell.
Yeah, I see a lot of similarities, man. So I think this kid's got a very high ceiling, man.
And another reason why
that's a mountain of a man, that boy. Ooh.
Yeah. Another reason why I think in terms of the 0 technique, why I think Godshaw might, or Wilkins for that matter, might have a leg up on him is because they're smaller in terms of their height, and you want to, in terms of the 0 tech, you want a smaller kind of shorter, stockier guy because it's all about leverage,
right?
At that position.
6'6".
So yeah. He's tall. He's 6'7". And again, we saw, when you look at his tape, he's displayed that, he's consistent in his technique. He's powerful. He's got heavy hands. His hand place, his technique is flawless. But again, that's playing in the SEC. He's transitioned to the NFL now, and Godshaw has 3 years on him, and so.
They got him listed at DN right now.
Yeah, I think he'll be more. I think Godshaw will be that. They'll attempt to make Godshaw that anchor this year. But he will get a lot of snaps. But I just think he'll be one of the 3 techs or 4-3. 3-4 defensive ends, whatever you want to call them. But I think Godshaw will be that centerpiece initially. But that could all change over the course of the season.
All right, so EM, your own. Van Noy and Vince Beagle will be our starting interior linebackers.
Oh, okay. We were 32nd in the NFL last year in run defense. 4.5 yards a carry is what we gave up last year. It was a multitude of reasons, in my opinion, that contributed to that 32nd ranking. Okay, I think it was we didn't have a presence on the edge, and we definitely didn't have a consistent presence on the interior. I think the edge has been addressed this year with the addition of Emmanuel Ogbah, Shaq Lawson, as well as the draft picks that we brought in. But the interior, in my opinion, is still somewhat of a question mark. So you have, I think, the reason why we were so, we were so inept up the middle was two reasons. The biggest reason, in my opinion, was Jerome Baker consuming 80% of the snap counts at that position last year. That's number one. Number two was the durability issues that Raekwon McMillan had last year. That's been his. That's been a knock on him ever since he came. Ever since we drafted him, was durability concerns. So with that being said, I think when we got Vince Beagle, he started 10 games for us last year. I'm extremely high on him transitioning to that interior role because he's a player that has a versatile skill set. He can play interior or outside in a base 4-3 or a 34. And he displayed that last year. He was our best edge player in my opinion, overall last year. I mean, PFF gave him in 10 games, gave him a 69.8 overall rating. And he graded out good, better than everyone else in the run game as well as coverage. So I am extremely high on him. This is his first year in this system. I think another year with 10 games in this system last year, then a whole off season to prepare himself. I think he is going to be ideal on the interior because he's proven when at Wisconsin, he was a versatile player that we all know the type of scheme that Wisconsin deploys with their linebackers. They like to move, they like to move their players around. They have to be very interchangeable. And obviously that's a priority with this defensive coaching staff since day one. So I definitely love the prospect of him transitioning. I think he's better. Number one, you look at the profile of Van Noy and as well as Vince Beagle. Vince Beagle's 246, Kyle Van Noy is 250. So in the interior of a 34 defense, you want players to have a little more girth on them, a little more strong, being able to be, being more stout at the point of engagement with offensive linemen. And both of them have displayed that they have consistently, definitely Kyle Van Noy. But I saw last year with Vince Beagle, he consistently put that on tape last year. He's very good at the point of engagement. So, and I think primarily why I think they'll be deployed in that way is because, again, the two additions we have on the end on the edge with Ogbah and Shaq Lawson. So I think immediately once the transition is complete, okay, I think immediately the run defense will be improved dramatically. And as well, there's still, even again, I love Raekwon Davis. We all know that. I've been on record. Y'all know how I feel about this kid, but he's a rookie. You know what I mean? And you have the somewhat inconsistency with Devon Godchaux. So with that being said, you want bigger, more physical, more experienced guys on the interior to maybe offset some of that uncertainty that we have at the zero technique position in our base 34. So I think once this transition is complete, we will see tangible improvement from day one, I believe. I'm convinced of that. And both of them actually are, they grade out pretty well in the past as well. So I'm hoping this possibility is on the table with our coaching staff, because I think it will bring a significant improvement to our overall run defense. Our defense as a whole overall.
BallGame, what are your thoughts?
I don't disagree with what he's saying in terms of that being their primary responsibility on maybe first and second down, which are the primary run stopping downs. But both of those guys, I doubt will be on the field on third down though, because liability wise, in terms of the athleticism for tight ends and slot receivers and things of that nature, that's not their strength. That's not their strong points. So but we gonna be linebacker heavy anyway. You kind of have to be linebacker heavy in a 3-4 when you're running a 3-4 because you need versatility to be able to match up with all sorts of different nuances of these tricky new offensive sets that cats come up with. You know what I'm saying, every week. So I had Beagle plugged to be shadowing more Agba coming off the edge and Van Ginkel sliding inside as opposed to Beagle, but.
I think both of them.
It could go either way.
I think both of them. Well, that's what I mean. Well, that's what I mean, BallGame.
Because to me, right, my thing is still always this: the guys that we brought in, those guys, in my opinion, came in to teach the younger guys that we have that they want to keep around how to play those positions to the fullest, and from then on. You'll start to see a tapering off of those. I mean, if we do well, they do well. But at the end of the day, somebody's got to plug the spot that somebody's going to have to be behind Benoit playing in the middle, and somebody's going to have to be behind whoever's opposite him. So we're going to have four. You got to have 4 inside guys, and then you're going to have 2 guys on the outside behind Lawson and Agba as well. So somewhere in the midst of that, you could be right. You know what I'm saying? They could very well be the best duo for the run stopping aspects on 1st and 2nd down, but on 3rd down, what about, you know what I'm saying, Gruger Hill and in the past sets, Baker and Gruger Hill.
Well, that's what I mean. That's why I said the base in our base.
Yeah. So
the base formation.
So we speaking the same thing. I think Van Ginkel has more athleticism than Beagle. So. I would agree with that. He's my guy. He would be my choice to put inside next because he's also he's 240. He 240. Actually, right now he's at 246. So he big kid too, but he moves better than Beagle does.
Yeah, I would agree with that. He's a better athlete, slightly, but he's a better athlete.
Yeah, but
Jason.
But those guys like Gruger Hill.
Yo, bro, we're gonna go one through one person just because we got some.
All right, go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
Jason, what are your thoughts on that?
Linebacking core as a whole, BallGame. You said it right. Inside, outside, there are guys who were probably better suited in one area. Obviously, a guy like a Van Noy is kind of a hybrid. He even says he was brought in to be a football player. So where Brian Flores tells him to go, he's gonna go. In terms of a Vince Beagle, I like him on the inside. And versus a Van Ginkel. Van Ginkel's like 6'4". He's a tall, long guy, so maybe he could help out versus, tight ends, or over the middle in the slot, or maybe even, if you want to think about him outside in the flats or whatnot. But, I think Beagle, when you really think about him as a player, was one of the best moves of last year. Trading, Kiko, getting him in, bringing a player like that, and who, went through 2 or 3 teams before getting to Miami, and he's proving himself. And now we're talking about him hopefully starting or getting significant snaps.
Because no one thought he was going to be anything in that Kiko trade.
Right, exactly right. It was almost like, all right, yeah, it's a great
fodder. We all thought he was fodder, right?
And if you look at his how he's kind of bounced around, that's similar to what Kyle Van Noy did when he was drafted into the league, because he wasn't drafted by the Patriots. He's drafted by the Detroit Lions. Buried on the depth chart. And if you look at him, similar skill sets. Very similar skill sets,
right?
So, but I'm just saying. But again, I'm just saying this is, in my opinion, is the best run formation. I think that's our biggest issue. 32nd ranking in the league last year.
Hey, I'm with you there. But I'm with you there.
But you have those other guys like Gruber Hill that were brought in, and I personally, I don't think Jerome Baker's going to be on the roster. But those are sub-package guys in my opinion. But yeah.
Dougley, what are your thoughts on this prediction?
Go ahead.
Well, going after my guy Jerome Baker. When it comes to what EM's saying with the base and the run, don't be surprised, right? Because I think the starting 2 linebackers for the Dolphins are going to be Kyle Van Noy and Jerome Baker. I think Jerome Baker's speed, his ability to play sideline to sideline, especially going after Josh Allen twice a year, now Cam Newton twice a year. You need that guy out there who can either quarterback spy or have the possibility of going after all these fast line running backs, especially if they start running to the edge, because we know last year how hard it was for our defensive ends to set the edge. So I think that our starters will be Jerome Baker and Kyle Van Noy. But when it comes to the base that EM's talking about, I honestly think it'll be Kyle Van Noy and Raekwon McMillan. because Raekwon McMillan was a nasty run stopper last year. And if we're talking about base, as in we're going to be stopping the run, and we'll have Ginkle and Beagle, because you guys know how I feel about Vince. You know, I love Vince Beagle. Have them on the outside, the speedy guys on the outside, again, because it's hard. You know, we've had a history of having a hard time setting the edge. Have those guys on the outside to set the edge, and then you have the big thumpers like EM saying in the middle. I think Raekwon McMillan would probably be one of those big guys, because we saw last year how well he played against the run and how he stuffed a lot of that run, a lot of the runs.
You know, the only reason why I didn't say Raekwon is because he's a one-dimensional player.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So when he's just, you know, he's terrible in coverage.
Yeah,
but Beagle I think Beagle and Van Noy obviously are better in coverage, in addition to run stopping ability. But
you know what?
But I love Raekwon. I love Raekwon McMillan, but he's just a one-dimensional player. It's just it is what it is.
But from a guy that's coached guys that couldn't actually even cover themselves and used to fall down just backpedaling. You know what I mean? You can teach a guy if you love the guy enough and he has a skill set that you really love, you can teach a guy to cover. You just have to. It just has to be something that they focus on. And I don't believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that anybody prior to Flores them getting there did that with him. Plus, you got to think like he missed. You know, Raekwon. What we looking at in terms of his years,
he missed.
Aren't really true, because he missed that entire whole season.
That's true.
And then he came back to a whole bunch of foolishness with Burke. You know what I mean? And so this will actually be really and truthfully, if they put it in play right, his first legitimate year to actually get somebody to teach him how to actually drop in coverage, because they didn't ask him to do that either in Ohio State.
See, I want to wrap this up. We're spending too much time on one prediction, but I'm just going to add in my 2 cents on where we're at here. My whole thing is I thought it was going to be for that. I do agree it's going to be Van Noy, and then I agree it's going to be a battle between Baker, Vince Beagle, and Van Ginkel. And, you know, we've gone over on the stream in depth Jerome Baker's coverage numbers, and for a guy who we've heard he's so good at coverage, for his deficiencies in the run game, he's so good at coverage. You know, we kind of exposed when we jumped into the analytics that last year in coverage he was not good at all. And my whole thing here with is, when I look at Vince Beagle and when I look at Van Ginkel, I feel like them blitzing up on those interior guys is going to be more effective than Jerome Baker. I feel like for example, if you go back to that Jets, I believe it was the Jets game where Needham had the pass interference that eventually cost us the game or whatever. Van Ginkel, BallGame's boy, had that big play right before the Needham interception, and what was it? All they did was they shot him up the middle on the interior guys, and he's speedy, he's athletic, and he hit the hole, and he was through. We've talked about Van Ginkel, the limited snaps. The one thing we noticed is he's got a nose for the ball. Wherever the ball is, he's always around it. And you saw flashes of another thing that you really don't see at the linebacking level, but you saw it with Van Ginkel a little bit. He's a little bit of a playmaker at linebacker. And I think that's what could make him stand out from, you know, a guy like I do like Vince Beagle. I think it's going to come down to Vince Beagle and Van Ginkel. I think Jerome Baker, I mean, we've had Sharif on here, and Sharif's argument was, well, why did they give him basically the defensive playbook as a middle line, as the mic? And it was just because it's out of need. I mean, who else other than Raekwon? Who else did you have in that linebacker core that you're really going to put those kind of responsibilities on last year? I mean, it was just out of necessity. So I actually, you know, I do think Jerome Baker is one of those guys. You know, I know Jason said in our group chat that there's a couple of vets that have to be looking over to their shoulder. And I think Vince Beagle and Van Ginkel having fully healthy seasons could be cause for concern for a guy like Jerome Baker, man. Especially if his coverage doesn't get a little bit better, because, I mean, that's supposed to be his whole high point. It's like Kalen Ballage. Apparently he has these really good hands, right? So, Mr. BallGame.
Yeah, man.
Real quick, Reese, I gotta get out of here. Sorry,
no worries, brother.
Jump in. But I just wanted, before I get out of here, I just want to say to you guys, it was a pleasure hanging out with you guys, and I'm hoping we do this real soon, because I want to stay for the whole thing and have a full-on chat with you guys.
No worries, brother. We're gonna talk about your prediction, though. I'm just letting you know, bro.
All right, yeah, definitely. I'm interested to see that.
All right, brother.
All right, see you guys later.
Doug. All right, man. Be good, bro.
All right, so look here. One sec. All right. So
yeah, Dieter gonna be a starter.
Yeah, that's what I was going to put up here. Michael Dieter is going to be a starter.
You know why?
I hope.
Karras is only on a 1-year deal. And I think they brought Karras in to actually teach him the nuances of actually playing center in the NFL. And he'll start out the season. Karras will start out the season as the guy, but I think they're going to make probably about week 5, they'll make a transition to Dieter to be the anchor of that offensive line, and that'll be his permanent position. And I think he's fairly suited for it, because if you look at who we put around him, regardless of who we put around him right now at guard, they're actually going to be physically stronger and more adept to deal with helping him take care and deal with any other zero techs and things of that nature that he'll have to deal with. But that guy's smart, man, and his footwork is amazing. So that's a perfect position for him to transition from guard to center, and then build around him, and then have your young line solidified by him. Karras, like I said, I feel like is only brought in to essentially teach him what he needs to learn, because he's only on a 1-year deal, and then Karras is gone, and then it'll be Dieter's line to command for the rest of the time that they're together. And I really do believe that out of all he went through last year, right, he's the one guy that they stuck with week in and week out, right, through his good and his bad. I don't know how bad people said it was. Dieter was in there, and he worked every week, and he consistently got better over time. You know what I'm saying? Some battles you're gonna win, some you're gonna lose, but that guy legitimately played every game, and I think they love what they got in him. So you know, they bring in all these other guys to build around that, and you slide him into the middle, put Flowers on the left side of him, put maybe Davis or Hunt on the right side of him. And then you figure out the tackles, but you know what I'm saying? That's I would take that guard center guard tandem and be okay with it. You know what I mean? Because I know without a shadow of a doubt, Flowers, at least on that left side, is gonna be a monster. That dude's out the gym strong. It's crazy. And Davis isn't the strongest guy, but Davis' technique is good enough to help him win battles and help Dieter on situations where Dieter may be overpowered. But you know, at the end of the day, they gotta go. The younger they go, the better off we'll be in the long run. So that's my thought process. That's my prediction. Dieter gonna be a starter by the end of the season. So, well, starting center.
Jason, what are your thoughts?
I like that prediction. You know, I know before talking about Dieter, and yes, there was more bad than good last year, but there was enough good. And you mentioned footwork. He's a Wisconsin lineman. I mean, look, there's certain schools, there's pedigree. You know, Wisconsin linemen, you know, especially I like cold weather built linemen for the Dolphins when you go up to Buffalo, New England, New York, New Jersey, you know. So he's a guy who, you teach him center. Excellent point about Karras coming in. Really, his job is not to be a Pro Bowl center for a year. His job is to maybe tutor a Pro Bowl center in 3 years. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like that's what the brilliance of forget Greer, forget Flores. Guys like, you know, in the front office, you know, that are coming in from other organizations that are joining, you know, your Allens, your McKenzies, and just helping bring in talent to help the younger talent. And Karras is just a brilliant guy. He's a master's graduate, PhD student, or about to be, or whatever. Right. He's someone who could just say, you know what, this is my job. If I could play for a month and a half, get my film up, so when I want to play another year or two somewhere else, I'll sign that other contract, but this is my job. And he's a New England guy. Surprise, surprise. Right. So that's what Flores and these guys are bringing in. And I love the hope that a guy, what did he start? 14, 15 games last year, Dieter? 15. You know, 15, right? So give him a shot. You know, if he can, I love a center. We've had great centers, this Dolphin organization, from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. You know, I really wanted Cesar Ruiz. Reason knows that. I was hurt when we didn't draft Ruiz. But if this could work out and you give me 80% of Tim Ruddy if Michael Dieter could be 80% of Tim Ruddy,
then we hit the lottery, baby.
There you go. 75%. I'll split that ticket with you.
Yeah.
There it is.
Where were you at, EM? Because I know you've been since before the reports came out about him going to center. You've been talking about him converting to center.
Yeah, bro. I would love to see this transition happen. I've been consistent about this for a year now. I think his skill set, as we're sitting here in 2020, better translates to center, especially with this power gap scheme that we seem to be implementing, for the 2020 season. I think his athleticism, I think his technique is where it needs to be. And I think he has the aptitude, because he proved that at Wisconsin, that he can handle that, role. So, that would, I think, in terms of Karras, that's a very, very good point, BallGame, that I didn't really necessarily even think about until you mentioned it. But yeah, he's only on a 1-year deal, bro. And Dieter offers more in terms of physical ability than what Karras does. Karras is somewhat limited in his athleticism. That's not our issue with Dieter. Nope. So when you're talking about deploying centers, generally, a huge part of a responsibility at center is to climb that second level and be able to play in space and pick up identify them linebackers and pick up the opposing team's linebackers. So again, I think Dieter, that's an excellent point. He'll hopefully he can come in and kind of teach Dieter, get him up to speed on the nuances of that position at the NFL level. And if that happens and that transition does happen, I think that would be ideal.
Well, he's going to have a battle on his hands because none of you three have mentioned Donnell Stanley. And,
yeah, I mean, I think,
and the thing with Stanley too is Stanley, like Dieter, guards center. He's just as versatile, right? And he licked his chops in the SEC too. So it's going to be interesting. That's going to be, you know what?
I'm putting my money on the Wisconsin kid.
It's going to be a battle, man. I'm telling you right now. Like the only kid I really saw handle Donnell Stanley pretty badly was Raekwon Davis. Lo and behold, now they're teammates. But that was the only player I really saw give Donnell Stanley serious problems at because he went to South Carolina. So he played Alabama. He played those guys. So
I'm gonna take a year of Michael Dieter dealing with grown men over comparing him to a kid playing against college player. You know what I mean? At this point now, Dieter know what he's up against. You know what I mean? That first year in the NFL, man, everybody I talk to that's played in the NFL, that first year is a shell shocking experience. And guys either step up and answer the challenge, or they fall away in the shadows. And I don't see that being Michael Dieter, man. I know right now, without doubt, he in the gym. He been in the gym. Put on some more muscle, got stronger. You know what I mean? Like he legitimately is taking to making sure the butt whoopings he took last year, he ain't gonna take this year, type of thing. You know what I mean? And that's what I like to see. It would be different if I saw, you know what I'm saying, on his page or whatnot, him just sitting around, just taking all this time off and not doing anything. But that kid's working. Like he legitimately wants to be one of the best. And I'm gonna put my money on that horse, man.
There you go. I'm with you. Hey, that lottery ticket, I'm with you. I'm putting that money with you right now.
Not to knock Stanley. Don't get me wrong.
No. But Dieter, I'm on the Dieter.
Yeah. I like Stanley.
To be honest with you, it kind of goes back to a little bit what EM said earlier about Raekwon. I like Stanley's frame a little bit better too, in terms of he's 6'3", he's not 6'6". He's about 325, whereas Dieter's 310. Yeah. So he's a little bit shorter. He's way more compact. His anchor's a little bit more lower to the ground, so he's harder to kind of stand up. But, man, I think Dieter's got, I agree with all of you in terms of, Jason set it off, and you guys all agree with it, and I'll agree with it too. Wisconsin linemen are just another breed, and I do think – I think Stanley and Dieter are both going to obviously make the team. I think Stanley – just because he's versatile. You know what I mean? Because, as Jason mentioned, guys, we've always had, even in the 2010s with Pouncey, we've always had good centers, but we've had durability issues over the last while, right?
You need a dog pushing a dog, man. Dog sled don't work. The dog sled don't work to success without the lead dog is one thing, but the mug behind him is also doing the work too. So they pushing him, and he trying to stay out front. He want to be out front. So
give me the guy who's going to defend me in a bar fight. Michael Dieter is going to defend me in a bar fight. That's my center. That's my center. 6'6".
Yeah, he's tough. He's a tough kid.
That's my guy.
So, Jason.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I like Dieter.
Go ahead and read because you're going to get some kickback on this one. But
I can't wait. I can't wait.
Go ahead.
Well, looking at, a lot of moves, non-moves. Reason got the smile because I'm going to set it up nice and slow like. But you look at the wide receiver group, and I'm going to say an undrafted wide receiver is going to make the team, but I don't think he's going to catch many passes, if any pass, maybe ever. And I'll tell you why. Matt Cole from McKendree University is a wide receiver on your program. All right. He's a punt returner, kick returner.
Oh, we're doing the Matt Cole. No, I had the Kalen Ballage. Kalen Ballage.
Oh, I thought I was going to get kicked back on that. All right. So the Cole thing's cool. So I'm going to keep
do the Cole. We'll do the Cole after. We'll do this.
All right. So,
actually, we'll do the Kalen Ballage. Go Kalen Ballage.
Okay, Ballage isn't going to make this team. So I'll just pull the Band-Aid off now that I ruined the whole thing here.
Man, we were doing so well, bro.
I'll tell you, I know.
Now, Jason. Now,
hold on. Let him explain. Let him explain.
I am. I'm gonna ask him this real quick though. Now, is that just your personal opinion, or did a birdie tap on is whispered in your ear about that possibility?
About Kalen Ballage?
Yeah, about Kalen Ballage.
That's my left eye and my right eye.
The eye test. Your eye test.
The eye test. I'll give you a stat. I'll give you one of my favorite stats. Kalen Ballage had one more broken tackle in 2019 than I did.
Yeah. Wow, man.
Look at this straight face he's talking with.
Wow.
So with that said, I don't necessarily dislike the guy, but if I'm looking at my eye test, or if I'm looking, don't give me the offensive line, because if you tell me if you're a good back and you break 17 tackles in 5 weeks, you're a good back. You're breaking tackles. But you know what? There's got to be some level of accountability. And I have to just look at the room. I look at you bring in Jordan Howard. Guys, here's a real stat. Who's the 2 or the 3 top rushers since 2016 in the NFL? Jordan Howard's number 3. Todd Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott's 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So if you wrap your head around that, the Dolphins have a workhorse that doesn't even have to be a workhorse. You got Matt Breida, who was a day 3 MVP pick in a trade to San Francisco. And then you got Malcolm Perry, who is going to be deployed naval guy, in every aspect of any which way you could think of, get him the ball. So you don't need a guy like Ballage. You have a Myles Gaskin who, again, you haven't even hit a ceiling. You haven't even hit 3 floors up. We've seen what we have in Ballage. I wish him well. I hope he goes to an absolute monster of an offensive line where he could fall ahead 2.5 yards. It'll still be 0.8 more than he averaged last year.
And you know what's true, Jason? Because me and EM have had this discussion privately, and at BallGame we'll probably agree with this. People forget how big of a beast Myles Gaskin was in college.
Dude, he was the best runner. He's a Husky legend.
Yeah, he was an absolute monster. So, BallGame, what is your take?
I can't. I mean, I understand why he went that route. I understand why he's saying it, because true to form, he really hasn't shown us anything. But I don't know, man. There's just something about the kid, man, that just won't let me give up on him just yet. And maybe that's just because I understand the nuances of how hard it is to be a running back. You know what I mean? They don't get ideal situations, and you don't get to choose your offensive lines and things of that nature. But the stats don't lie. He hasn't been great for us. And if there's another guy that if they have a guy that can get the job done, then I can't argue it. You know what I mean? As much as I love him, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna sit here and I'm not gonna sit here and pom and cheer for him when he hasn't really given me much to work with. I just say he seems motivated again. You know what I mean? He's talking the right talk this time around, but again, we'll see what happens, because at the end of the day, he could show up and outperform everybody in camp, and then that creates an even better. All in all, it creates a better situation for us because then you got 3 guys or 4 guys in that room that are all hungry and all pushing each other. So, you know, he is what I would consider to be, though, at his size and speed, a freak of nature. So if they can at least get anything out of him, I think it's worth at least holding on to him. And if not, then let him go in the season, and then you don't lose anything because you're gonna put somebody going to the practice squad anyway.
Right.
And I don't necessarily know if people are gonna be running out to come grab up running backs as opposed to a wide receiver sitting out there. You shelter the wide receiver. You can put the running back out there. He'll sit for a bit because ain't nobody. You know, it's a passing league now. People want to spread you out and throw the ball as opposed to they're gonna have more wide receiver needs as opposed to running back needs. So depending on how many they keep in the room, they carry 4. I say he makes it. They only carry 3, then yeah, he's gone. So.
Where are you at with this? Well, we already know where you're going to be at with the EM, but where are you at with the EM?
You know, I'm piggyback off what BallGame said. I mean, I can't sit up here and defend the season that he had last year. I can't do that. But why I'm willing to make a minimal further investment on Kalen Ballage is 6'3", 235 pounds with 4.42 speed. Those players with that skill set don't come into this league very often. Very few. So with that being said, he didn't show us much last year. But if you go back to his rookie year, okay, with a better offensive line that we had, not by much, but we had a better offensive line, he flashed preseason as well as the regular season. So I think with improvement up front, I think with guys with this one cut power gap scheme that we will be implementing, which is a simplified schematically for running backs. Okay, you see the hole, you hit the hole, boom. So Ballage with guys that actually can move people, that can reset the line of scrimmage more consistently than what we put on the field last year, his athleticism can be an asset. And again, him and Matt Breida are the only 2 running backs on our roster that have that big playability. No disrespect to Jordan Howard,
well,
whom I love, and I love the addition.
Let's not sleep on Malcolm Perry. I mean, Malcolm Perry.
He's a slug bug, though.
I'm sleeping. I'm snoring on Malcolm Perry, bro. I'm snoring on him.
Oh man, he don't have
slow, bro.
4.42 speed. He don't have, bro.
He has that. He has that tricky on a sweep. He's got that athleticism. He can do damage deployed in certain situations, but he's not a Ballage guy. Ballage has more athleticism than him, but I think in deployed in certain situations, strategically in a football sense, you know, you got your Howard, you got your Breida, you got your Gaskin, and then you got your X Factor and Perry. I just don't think that there's room for a Ballage because, you know, I think he would have shown us more than flashes at this point. That's just my point. You know, if he comes out and balls out, I'm not going to be upset, you know, but again, he's a guy that could miss those 2 preseason games, miss those reps in training camp and be hurt because they brought in 3 other running backs. So that's also what I'm looking at too.
Now, in terms of Malcolm Perry, you know, I look at him as more of a gadget guy. Agreed.
But they have him listed as a running back. That's what he's saying.
Right,
agreed. He's a gadget.
Right. Okay.
Great gadget.
But I don't think he'll be prioritized over our top 4 guys, in my opinion, is Jordan Howard, obviously, Matt Breida, Kalen Ballage, and Patrick Laird, because I think those are our 4.
Oh, we're even forgetting about Laird. Absolutely. Totally forgot about
Patrick
Laird. And
so
when I'm looking at, like, you know, the New England Patriot running back trio of Sonny Michel, James White, Rex Burkhead, is a lot of comparables with Jordan Howard, Matt Breida, you know, and Patrick Laird. And then you have your Malcolm Perry, who could be like your Julian Edelman. So I just don't see any room for Ballage.
But you keep a Merrick, though. You don't need a Perry.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. That's a question.
And also,
go ahead.
And the reemergence, and a lot of people are not talking
about
Albert
Wilson back there again.
And Albert Wilson. People are not talking. People are sleeping on what Albert Wilson could potentially be this year. We're getting that. Exactly. We're getting that.
I think Perry's going to be deployed like Taysom Hill.
Yeah, like a 2-point conversion, gadget guy. Yeah.
Wow,
you know, we've talked about
You'd keep a roster spot for that, though?
Here's the
that's my
tricky
next
thing.
point.
If Albert Wilson can do that, if Jakeem Grant can do that,
I
if
agree.
Perry can do that, then why would you need Perry for that?
The trick on a guy like a Malcolm Perry, and this is going to be one of those, you look back at 2020, you look at things like collective bargaining, this COVID thing. There will be 55 players on a game day roster where 2 players can come up from the practice squad and then be sent down after the game. So who are those kind of players? And then how are you going to actually make that 53? Do you address 2 quarterbacks? Do you bring, you know what I mean? So who's running to get a Malcolm Perry off a practice squad if he goes down there and then goes up? Maybe, maybe not. But the Dolphins have 4 or 5 players.
New England spent the most time pre-draft with them.
So there you go. But my point is there's 4 or 5 players who could be used in and around that kind of bring up, bring down situation that benefits. Look, there's 5-6 teams that this could really benefit, the Dolphins being one of them. So Perry's a guy you got to get some touches to. Balaj, unfortunately, I just don't see in the plans.
See, I've mentioned this. I've mentioned this before, and I don't know. I don't think you were on the show, Jason. My thing with Perry is they spent money to bring in a quarterbacks coach last year because they didn't like how Chad O'Shea and company was moving along Rosen. I would do the same for Malcolm Perry because I think if you polish him as a passer a little bit, now you actually have something. Because I've said this. The thing about Malcolm Perry is he's one of those players where you don't look at his 40 time. You look at him in open space, and he's he's dynamic and he's deadly in open space. You want to get the ball in his hands in open space. That's what you want to get with the guy. So that's why I would just polish him. I would basically make him my option wildcat RPO type of guy. Like I've said this before. If you're not going to start Tua this year and you're going to roll with Fitz and you want to start sprinkling that RPO and that option, why not polish out Malcolm Perry and let him come in and run the option or the wildcat or whatever you want to run?
Is he the guy to be the long term? Go ahead. I'm sorry, Ian.
Polish him up on the practice squad. He
Yeah,
just won't be on the 55.
Because you already got a guy. But I'm saying though, you already got a guy like that. Albert Wilson was a quarterback.
Exactly.
So you already got a gadget guy.
This
already
is
on
true.
the roster that's already done it in the league.
But we only have Wilson for one
I
more.
agree.
We only have Wilson for one more. We only have Albert for one more year too.
Well,
right?
yeah,
He's got a
put
good
him
amount
on
of years
ice.
under him.
So you just put him on the practice
Put him on
squad.
ice. Put him on ice. Polish him up on the practice squad.
Nothing wrong with that.
I just don't think he'll be prioritized on a 55-man roster. I just don't. Not this year. He won't be.
Potentially not. I like the progression potential with a guy like him, but if someone says to me, put money on either a Gaskin or a Balaj to win that last running back spot,
You're gonna go with Gaskin.
I am going to go with Gaskin, and I'm going to, you know what? If I'm wrong, I would be actually extremely thrilled because that's the guy who looks better from a skilled, prototypical, big, fast, good-looking running back. You know what I mean? So if Gaskin outplays him, that says a lot about Gaskin, says a lot about Balaj. But if Balaj outplays him, you know what? Ball game, year 3, let's do it. So I'm going to hope to be disappointed and kind of hedge my bets and go with Gaskin.
I feel you.
So let's go.
But you did.
We gotta move on to other predictions.
Go ahead.
Too much time. So my second prediction and my last prediction is that I think Robert Hunt's going to win the right tackle job. I've talked about him. I've showed film on the channel about him and his ability to consistently get to the next level, show that ability to play in open space. He's got very, very high football IQ where, he's – and what's crazy is he's got high football IQ in condensed situations. So what I mean by that is we showed the one play, and I've talked about it multiple times, where the interior defensive lineman, he chip blocks the interior defensive lineman. But after he does that chip block, he's aware enough to notice, hey, that linebacker is moving up and into the run lane that's about to come behind me. And he goes to that second level and blows the linebacker up, puts him on his behind. He's got heavy hands. I think when you look at our offensive line, he may be a rookie, but when you look at all the tape of every player we have on that offensive line, he's clear and far away, has the biggest violent streak out of all of them. And to me, that when you got a guy who can play in open space, when you got a guy who can get to the next level and he's violent on top of all that, that is the makings for something special. And I do think Jesse Davis is going to kick into right guard, and I do think Jesse Davis being back to his natural position and also having last year where he was kicked around a little bit playing tackle and guard, he's going to be able to ease the transition for Robert Hunt because he's going to realize the growing pains, the learning curve, and the potential struggles this kid might face because he faced them last year at that position. Now, all that said, Hunt could win the right tackle job and Larry Warford could be brought in to right guard, who knows? Because like EM has said, and I kind of agree with, I think one of the reasons they haven't moved on a guy like Warford is because they don't know where Hunt is going to land, and they don't want the 39th pick not to win the tackle spot, and then they got a three-time consecutive Pro Bowler, Larry Warford there, who he's probably, we can all place our bets on, he's not going to beat out. So that's where I'm at with Robert Hunt. I do think, I've talked about this before. It looks like with our interior, they're going with those phone booth guys. And then on the outside, they're going with those more athletic guys who can play in open space and get to that next level with Austin Jackson and Robert Hunt. So, EM, we'll start with you. Who do you think is going to win the right tackle job, and do you think it's going to be Robert Hunt?
Well, first off, I'm comfortable with either scenario. If whoever wins, well, it appears that the competition is going to be between Robert Hunt and Jesse Davis.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with either scenario. If his lateral movement isn't where it needs to be in terms of dealing with speed rushers, and I keep telling y'all, he's going to get tested day one with Emmanuel Ogbah on that edge position, because that's where he lines up at that right tackle, left the end spot. So right tackle, right the end spot. So he's going to get tested early. It'll be a good test for him early on in training camp, and we'll see where he is. But if he,
that's a great point. That's actually a great point. That's actually a great point. I think a lot of people.
So they'll have an idea. So yeah, they'll have a good idea where he is in terms of his ability to match speed guys. But in the event that he struggles with that, kick him in the guard, because a lot of people feel, and which I feel, that is the spot to maximize him early on, maximize his potential early on. And Jesse Davis, again, I might be a little more higher on him than probably 95% of our fan base. But Jesse Davis, okay, another year in that role, and we're so, as fans, we're so quick to discount that getting incrementally better every single year. Who's to say that Jesse Davis couldn't take a significant leap this year, and be a above average right tackle? We don't need him to be Jack Hockland. I mean, that would be perfect if that happened. But if he's just average to above average, you know what I mean? I think that would be perfect. But yeah, I'm comfortable with either scenario. I can't say definitively that he's going to win or he's not going to win the job. We won't, I can't say that. But if I were to go out on a limb and make a prediction, I think Robert Hunt will be our starting in 2020. He'll be our starting guard, and I think Jesse Davis wins the right tackle spot.
BallGame, where are you at? I
think for me, I'm not one of those 95%ers. I like Davis. I like the fact that dude will line up and play wherever they want him to play. I think he was a train wreck when we first started with him, but that's not the case now. I think he's probably one of our most reliable linemen we've had in the last couple of years, and the fact that every year he has gotten better, that leaves me with more than enough optimism that regardless of where they play him, either at right tackle or at right guard, he's going to flourish and he's going to be okay. So you don't take Hunt where we took him to not play him. I think that the issue becomes, how bad will it get before they say, okay, he's not ready? You know what I mean? I think day one, they're going to plug him in. They're going to let him figure it out. And I like that idea because, these kids, especially offensive linemen, they never learn anything by sitting behind anybody watching. So throw him into the fire, let him get his feet wet. And then if he's drowning, then you save him. But if he's holding his own and he's doing a admirable man's job, he's going out there and he ain't getting his butt kicked every play, then you leave him because he's learning on the fly, and that's what we brought him in to do. We drafted him, but we drafted him with the hope that he'd have everything he needs in terms of being smart and athleticism and strength and durability and grit and fight and all that other stuff that comes along with where we drafted him at, to be that type of person. So the only way we're gonna know that is if we play him though. So him not being on the field doesn't help us in the long term of things, and we got to get better faster. And the only way that linemen really get better is by experience, reps after reps after reps, and especially reps against people that ain't lined up in the same uniforms as you. What he get in practice from Agba ain't gonna be nothing compared to what he get. It'll help him and it'll prepare him, but it's gonna be different when he playing somebody that's, you know what I'm saying, that really don't give a shit about him and don't care about nothing but getting the win for their team. So it's to his credit to learn as much as possible, as soon as possible, and be ready. And I think without a shadow of a doubt, you're right. He will get the job just because that's what we need him to do. We need him to secure that spot. It's not a matter of when. It's a matter of when is he going to be what we envision him in being. And with Davis's flexibility, plug him in at the guard spot, and now we solid there as well. You know what I mean? And it's a win-win for everyone, because at the end of the day, whether it's Davis out there or Hunt out there, either both of those guys, I think Davis long term will be he's more conditioned for it because he's already experienced it now at this point. But sliding him in the guard, that still gives him that guy in his ear next to him to tell him exactly, hey man, watch out for this. You know what I'm saying? Hey, I need you to get off. You know what I'm saying? On the snap, I need you to extend that kick foot just a little bit more so you can catch him, because this guy likes to do this, this guy likes to do that. Remember on the tape type of thing. You know what I mean? In the huddle and stuff of that nature. So Hunt's got to be the guy. If we're realistically thinking about it, he has to be the guy. Now, if they bring in Warford, then that throws a whole lot of stuff out of whack. But that process also, for me, stunts the growth of somebody that we need long term to be getting better. Also, so there may be that design as well, that they waiting in hopes that they do see enough from Hunt to say, okay, well, we can slide Davis in the guard and we don't need Warford. Yeah, we can move on from that process. You know what I mean? So.
No, yeah, I totally agree with what you just said, and like, you know, it's pretty clear the signals are being sent that they want him to win the job. Yeah. Like, it's pretty obvious.
We need him.
His draft status alone. Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. We all grade him as a guard, but they're out here saying, no, we view him as a starting right tackle.
Yeah, we need him. Yeah. We need him to live up to that draft status. Him and Jackson, both of them kids need to be thrown to the fire as soon as possible, so you can figure out exactly what it is we have. Whether that's in practice and we just send in everything we got at him, put them up against our best guys, because it's worked for both sides. But they need to be. We need to see it as soon as possible.
I think you. Oh, go ahead, bro.
Go ahead, bro. You think what?
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Jason. I'll go after Jason. Go ahead, bro.
No, I agree with what you guys were saying with Hunt in terms of, you know, you don't draft a guy like that to not start him and throw him in right away. Look, I'll tell you this much. If you don't know the story about the kid, Robert Hunt, I'm not going to bore you with it. It's amazing. Go watch it. Google it. But this kid is one of those guys that, you know, now is blessed to be in the NFL. He's going to love this opportunity. He's an athlete. He's just a guy who's going to hit people. And he's going to be thrilled to get paid to hit people. You know, I mean, literally. And whether it's at a guard spot, whether it's at a tackle spot, he needs to be a hit on the right side. Because in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, the most valuable real estate on the Dolphins team is going to be the two people protecting the left arm of Tua. And that's the right side of the offensive line. So whether it's the guard or whether it's the tackle spot, Robert Hunt probably is a top 3 most important rookie in this class.
Right.
Oh, I agree.
Are we gonna add him? You're gonna say something.
I was just gonna say, you know, I just wanted to clarify. I'm comfortable with either scenario, whether he's right tackle or.
So am I too, to be honest with you.
You know, either scenario. That means, and you know, it's a win. Like BallGame said, it's a win-win. That means Jesse Davis has improved significantly. If he can't beat him out.
Well, the thing is, why I'm fine with it is because I was BallGame might remember when we drafted him, I was on stream and I said that he has the potential to be a top 5 guard in the NFL. So if they kick him inside, I'm fine with that. So that's
a lot of people felt like he can make the Pro Bowl as a rookie.
Yeah, but you don't
get that production from him.
You know what we're starting to see him, not only with people in position, but also people where they got drafted. Remember what came out right before the draft started? Jason might remember this too. I don't know if BallGame did. But a lot of people like Matt Miller and stuff were reporting that NFL teams were telling them, you guys don't got it right. This is one of the years where you guys are the most off in terms of not only projections of where people were going to go, but also where people were going to play. And so Robert Hunt might be one of those cases.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Like, you know, everyone and their mother had Jerry Jeudy or CeeDee Lamb, except if you guys remember, I was on record saying, and so were you, I think, too. I said Henry Ruggs is my wide receiver 1. And who ended up going was Henry Ruggs.
Number 1.
You know what I mean? So, and that kind of was against the grain. A lot of people thought Jeudy was a top 10 pick. You know what I mean?
Guess what?
So,
I agree.
Guess what? When you move Hunt inside to guard on the Madden depth chart, he actually rated higher than he is as a tackle.
Because that's where he should be. If the right tackle in Davis, who should be a right tackle, if the guys play the right positions of what their body types and their skill set should be, it should be Davis at the tackle and it should be Hunt at the guard. Who knows what's going to happen with a Solomon Kinley, you know, and a Flowers. Let's have that competition, develop Kinley through Flowers, whatever. But, hey, man, that right side of that offensive line has got to be solidified, you know, by game 5 of 2020.
Real quick, one thing about Jesse Davis. People don't remember, you know, Jesse Davis hadn't been playing on the offense that long. He's a converted defensive tackle.
Okay.
Okay. So he's still
Omar
learning.
Kelly's a huge fan, right, EM? Omar Kelly loves Jesse Davis.
And I think our coaching staff is high on him as well. So I think there's definitely improvement to be made. Now, again, I'm pulling for Jesse Davis. I like him, man. I like his work ethic.
I think just a few days ago, someone asked him who they think, because he's been on record saying I'm part of the Jesse Davis fan club or whatever. But a couple days ago, I think someone asked him who's the most underrated player, and he said Jesse Davis.
And you saw significant improvement down the stretch last year.
Yeah, he got better. Unlike the rest of the.
He's gotten better every year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
especially if you think about where he came from.
Yeah.
So,
converted defensive tackle.
Jerome Baker will not be on the regular season roster, either via cut or trade, I assume.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Ian.
Yes, sir. Man, you know, I want to start off by saying, again, you know, it's not an indictment on the Jerome Baker, the person. I don't know Jerome Baker, again, from a can of paint. But I go by what the film tells me, what the analytics tell me. And I just think the season he had last year, the attempt at him transitioning to as an interior player in a 34 scheme, it's just not going to work. His skill set is not a match. And I highlighted earlier why I think Kyle Van Noy, Vince Beagle, or Raekwon, as well as Raekwon McMillan, or Andrew Van Ginkel are better suited in that role within his scheme. He's just his profile just doesn't match up. He's too small. He's and I don't even think he's a natural middle line. He doesn't have he's not an instinctual player. He's limited in terms of size, girth, and strength. Okay, he's limited in terms of his read and recognition ability, his ability to diagnose what the offense is doing. He's limited. We've seen it's so obvious on tape how hesitant he is to figure out to diagnose what the offense is doing. And when you combine, you have the mental aspect of it where he's deficient in, and you combine that with his physical limitations, it's a bad match. And I think personally, with the additions of obviously, I highlighted the scheme, okay, in our base. But the player, when we signed, if you recall, when we had our private chat going on BallGame YouTube, when we signed Kamir Gruber-Hill, if you go back to that text message, I said, this spells doom and gloom for Jerome Baker, because Jerome Baker's calling card is his speed, his athleticism, his ability to play in space, and his coverage ability, which he is deficient analytically in all of those areas. Kamir Gruber-Hill is twice the athlete Jerome Baker is. He graded out much better on that interior role, and on top of that, he's the Flores guy. I think when they signed him, that spelled if I'm Jerome Baker, I'm looking at real estate in different states at this point, because it's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when, in my opinion. And I know BallGame, you said, Birdies has whispered in your ear and said, Flores is high on him and he might like Flores is about who is going to give him the best chance to win. Jerome Baker doesn't at this point.
Ball game. I'll go right to you.
I disagree. So I don't think you give a guy 96.7% of all your defensive snaps and you keep him on the field asking him to do all the things. Listen, at the end of the day,
they had no other choice.
Can I finish?
Oh, go ahead. This is where it gets dicey, but go ahead.
Not necessarily. I mean, he doesn't fit the prototype. We all can agree on that. But the kid's a football player, so I've had kids that I've coached that didn't fit my scheme 100%, but they went out and did exactly what I needed and asked of them to do every game, and those guys became my most valuable players because they didn't freelance. They didn't know they wasn't athletically jumping out the gym and all this other stuff, but they went out and did the dirty work, and they did the job I needed to do. And you need guys like that. Every guy's not going to be a prototypical fit. And I just believe that maybe last year it was Flores' way of trying to actually see for himself if there was a reason to keep Baker as opposed to anything else. And I think Baker convinced him that he's worth keeping, and I could be wrong, but as a coach, I'm always looking to see if I can squeeze the next bit out of a guy. If a guy's gonna give me everything he's got, and Baker left, whether we like him or not, for his profile and how he looked, and what he left everything he had on the field, good, bad, and indifferent. And I would take that any day as a coach over a guy that looks like he's gonna be the next best thing and don't give me anything. And we see plenty of those guys come and go. So I don't believe they're gonna get rid of him, hopefully. But if they do, I'll be over the top surprised because the kid laid his whole heart out on the field last year for this team and for the coach. And when the coach asked him to do things that were not to his skill set, and he did them to the best of his ability. And did he win all of his matchups? No, he didn't. And then was he bad in some situations? Yes, he was. But hell, we all were bad. Everybody on the field was bad at times. So Jerome Baker not fitting the physical mold of what we want from him doesn't take away from the fact that this kid can play football, man. And he's a great teammate. He's a great teammate, and he's going to leave it out there on the field. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that Flores is also a guy that rewards and loves guys that are just going to go out there and do that over and over and over again. You need those type of guys. So I disagree. I think he'll be on the roster. And, we've had this discussion back and forth for God knows how long now. And
a year now.
Oh, yeah, a year. I'm staying pat, man. I think he's still going to be on the squad, bro.
Where are you at on this, Jason?
I like Baker. I'm a Baker fan. When you bring in a Van Noy, you bring in a Gruger Hill, and there's depth, and Landon Roberts, play special teams too, but whatever. You worry about either both Buckeyes, Raekwon McMillan, Jerome Baker. Will they both be Dolphins in a year or two? Maybe not both of them, but, it wouldn't shock me if one of those guys are not on the team in a couple of months, what have you. It would probably shock me a little bit more if Baker was traded. A lot what BallGame said. He put it out there. Not everything was pretty, but like 2019 was for the Dolphins. Not everything was pretty, but you build on what you've seen and what you got from the guys that you are football players. And Jerome Baker is a guy that is a football player. I know it's nice and easy to say football player, but you got a guy who wants to be a professional athlete and just star, or then you got guys who just do their job. No matter what, they just do their job. They go out day in, day out. What do you need me to do? That's it. And it seems like Jerome Baker is that kind of guy. Not saying that the others are not, but I'd be a little shocked if he was dealt or cut or not part of the plan this particular year.
Here's where the conversation gets a little – I'm sorry. Go ahead, Reason.
Yeah, just go ahead.
Gruger
Hill, the one thing that we have to keep in mind too is he's primarily a run defender and coverage linebacker, right? You kind of like Jerome Baker. He's not really that great at specifically the pass rush. I do think Van Ginkel and Beagle specifically went over this earlier are going to make Jerome Baker's life really hard in that interior. Jerome Baker, I get it, man. He's good athletic. We've gone into the analytics about how he wasn't coverage last year. He wasn't very good in coverage at all last year. He kind of got diced up a little bit. I don't know if I'm really ready to buy in that he won't be on the team just for depth purposes alone. But I do think EM is right in the sense of when you got the guys that are health coming back, and we now got full healthy seasons hopefully with them, and when you got a couple guys we brought in, Jerome Baker to me has been one of those guys that's been put on notice since free agency, and especially as we sit here today. So can he, he does have an advantage though, as ball game went over, 97% of the defensive snaps last year in Flores' system. So he knows what's expected. He knows what's wanted. He has familiarity to the scheme and the playbook. So he does have a leg up. But I just think I look at specifically Beagle and Van Ginkel, and I just think they're going to be – I think they offer what Jerome can do in terms of, people say Jerome he's good in coverage. I think they're just as good in coverage, if not a bit better. But I think they're just more dynamic playmakers from that linebacker position. So that's my thing. That's my thing with Jerome Baker. He's so athletic. No one's going to deny it, not even EM, but he's not dynamic with it. And that's what I think the problem is with this kid, man, is he's athletic as all can be, but he's as dynamic as a grain of salt. And that's your issue with why I think, you got people like EM who are kind of 1 foot out on the kid already. But
what about could that be attributed to the fact that they were all learning a brand new defense last year? The whole season long? Well, I mean, that's though. So now that he's got a year under it, maybe we see it. I just don't think with them coming in.
He just looks like the prototypical 4-3. He just looks like a prototypical 4-3 linebacker. He doesn't look like a 3-4 guy.
And he graded out so much higher. He graded out so much higher in 2018 as opposed to 2019. Yeah. He's his prototypical wheel linebacker, okay, in that Leo type position. And if you look at his stat, they graded out, so much better, in 2018, which was a 4-3 was our base that year. He's just not it's not that he's a horrible player overall. He's horrible in his scheme. Every player in the NFL needs a scheme that highlights their strengths.
Yeah.
In Jerome Baker's in this defense, what's required on the interior, that's not his strong suit. He's playing out of place. And you bring up the
perfect example, EM, because you talked about yesterday about the Patriots losing Jamie Collins. Look at what Jamie Collins was when he left New England and he went to Cleveland and went to a new scheme. He was terrible. Exactly. And then he came back and he had a career resurgence back when they plopped him back in that scheme, right?
Chris Carter said it best. He said 95% of the players that's ever played in this game need a scheme, are scheme guys. 95. So he's just not. He's not an ideal. He's just not suited for this scheme, in my opinion. And so, yeah, man, he needs to start looking for real estate outside the state of Florida. If in my opinion.
Time will tell.
So, Jason, because I know you got to quiet down a little bit. Matt Cole, give us your prediction.
Yeah, no, sorry, I jumped the gun a little bit, no pun intended, earlier on Cole. But, I love this kid to come in and literally earn the job that I think he's literally been doing for pretty much probably since he started playing football. I mean, he's a guy who covers kicks very well. Not only can he return kicks, can he return punts, he can cover both aspects of the kicking game. And he does it to the point where it reminds me of what, Matthew Slater does for the New England Patriots. And New England brought in Matt Slater to be a gunner, and that's all he does. And he's a Pro Bowler. He's the best in the business. He's $1 million player and one of the best players on that team, a Super Bowl champion, because that's all he does. He covers kicks, and that's the man's job. And a lot of times that role is given to guys who might be a 5th, 6th, 7th string receiver, a 4th string safety. Walt Aikens had that job, did it well, but he's no longer rostered by the Miami Dolphins. So it's that putting together A and B, which is where I'm getting to C, is that the Dolphins have a ready-made gunner in a wide receiver that isn't necessarily fighting for a wide receiver spot. So that's my call. Matt Cole will be on the roster, but will probably catch as many passes as I will.
I love that. I love that prediction because it's so niche, but I think it's so dead on. EM, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have much to add, bro. I can see that. I'm totally in agreement with you. Him making the team as a special teams guy, especially with Walt Aikens now, no longer, on the roster. So, yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I can see him, making the team in that role, definitely. But yeah,
Ball
I
game.
agree.
Didn't they bring Clayton? Didn't they bring Clayton over to be the gunner though?
Fledgelen from Cincinnati. I mean,
Cincinnati?
he's in the mix. He's in the mix. I mean, look. I mean, it's not like the job's going to be given to a Cole, but I think that this is a guy who could challenge for that. You want a guy like a Cole around. He could be a practice squad player too. I mean, he's also a guy who can return kicks as well. He'd do 3 or 4 different things for you. But in looking at the film, he did that job really to the point where it jumped off the tape much more than the other things that were impressive. He could take a sweep 70 yards for a touchdown. That was impressive. But to consistently beat the ball down to the return man, down it, create hits, lose yards on a return. I mean, how often is a guy getting down so quick and creating the return man to be so flustered where he's losing 2 yards?
I got you.
So that's what I liked from him. And if you're going to be an undrafted guy fighting for a job, you got 7 or 8 wide receivers, right? Well, give me one other guy that I got to beat out for a gunner. That's his path to the. I'll be happy with the prediction if he doesn't make the team, but he lost out to Clayton as the gunner. He becomes a gunner somewhere else or whatever. But that's where I think that they like this kid, because this is a very, very, very busy and heavy wide receiver room right now at the moment.
I can't argue that point, man. That's a good point.
So. All right, so we got ball games prediction, and then we're gonna go over that Dougley prediction that we were all licking our chops when we saw. So ball games prediction: Jakeem Grant will push for first string reps. Jason, what do you think about that?
When you say first team reps, I like Jakeem to get his hands on the ball, but where are all the targets going? You mentioned the Albert Wilson situation came on great last year. Wilson and Jakeem kind of in aggregate are like a lesser version of Jarvis Landry, but not as skilled. They can do a little bit what he did, just gaining yards, moving the chains, but a little bit more creative and gadget-wise. So I like Jakeem for big plays, tricky plays, but he's an X factor. Got to stay healthy, and I just don't know exactly what he's going to do with that return situation. Let's see what happens with those young kids too. Merritt could take some return jobs away from him if Grant wants to really be that receiver, but his break off the ball is fantastic. And he is an outside guy. It's like a lot of people he's an outside kind of receiver. Every time he has a good move, a good play, he's beating someone to the outside, even making a leap and don't give this guy a lack of credit for the size. He's going to go up and get the ball on the sidelines. So I like him. I root for him. I'm rooting for him. He needs to be a factor. He needs to be a factor on this team.
So before we get to EM ball game, do you want to just expand on it a little bit more?
Well, yeah. I mean, my people are telling me that they said they're going to give him a shot to get him some reps on the outside. The guy's dynamic out there. You know what I mean? And we've been trying to force him into this role of playing inside in the slot, but he made a name for himself at Texas Tech on the outside, lining up against the team's best guys on the outside. So Flores said, there's rumor that they're going to give him a shot to play where, he's most comfortable. So I believe that they'll see the dynamic ability that he has instead of trying to hide him inside, let him play outside and then give him the ball out there to let him make magic happen out there on the edge where he's most comfortable. You know what I mean? Which is why I'm saying, it only benefits us, right? Having Jakeem Grant out there with the type of speed he's got on the edge, the coverage has to be different. You feel me? Like, you can shell a coverage and keep fast guys underneath, bottled up. But if you put them out on the edge now, you got to pay special attention. You got to put a safety over the top. That's that cornerback who may not be nearly as fast as him has to play off now, which opens up a lot of other beautiful things you can do in the offense.
I'll tell you what, you're a coach, BallGame. You know, so if you got a guy like a Jakeem Grant and you send him on a go route and you got to take that safety up, doesn't that leave the middle of the field wide open for Mike Gesicki?
Absolutely.
Wide open.
I mean, if I'm Mike Gesicki, I'm just running wind sprints with Jakeem Grant just to get that continuity. And that, like, 8 yards in, just Mike says, all right, goodbye. And he's like, you know, it's not 5 yards to the middle of the field. So, yeah, Jakeem could be more value in what he helps other people do by taking coverage off, you know? So I love Jakeem. I hope he stays on the field and on the field often, you know, and helps the offense without even touching the ball.
Maybe first string reps is a bad way to. Maybe I'm saying more reps on the field outside as an X or a flanker.
And that's what I was going to say, because
inside of the slot, you know what I mean?
That's what I was going to say, because Jakeem Grant he's gotten reps on the boundaries in Adam Gase's scheme, and last year they deployed him in that role at time. It's, you know, in stretches during situationally. So the question should be how much more implementation. How much more implementation we'll see him in that role? That's the question. But absolutely, I love the idea of you know, Jakeem Grant, a player like him with that skill set, with that kind of dynamic speed, you know, playing on the boundary, because again, he's taking the coverage wherever he goes. There's very few cornerbacks in the league that can run for him stride for stride down the field on the go route. Very few. And also, and even if your boy Kurt Merritt, if he makes the roster and they implement him in that spread formation, you put him and Jakeem Grant on the outside, which is going to definitely expose the middle of the field. Where you have Parker, you can put him in a slot. Parker proved last year. They deployed him in stretches in the slot last year, and he feasted.
They can go empty tray flex, and they can line up Grant on the outside left with Parker inside of him, put Gesicki in the X in the slot next to the line of scrimmage and flex him off, and then line Williams up inside as the Y, and then you flex out the R. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you can flex out Merrick on the opposite side.
Yep.
They have enough guys that could do so many different things.
How do you defend that?
You can't.
Coordinator. How do you defend that?
Because no team right now, even today, no team in the NFL has on paper a better secondary overall than ours, right? So they might have one shutdown guy, but the other guys are at best average. You feel me?
I agree.
Somebody gonna win.
That's why it's imperative that this line can hold up and give either Fitzpatrick or Tua enough time to where they can survey the field and distribute the football accordingly. So appropriately. So, but yeah, that formation alone, boy, wherever they go, they're taking any player with that kind of dynamic speed.
Taking double
coverage with them. Yeah. They're taking the coverage with them. So yeah, like I said, I love Jakeem Grant in that role. He's been deployed. We saw him with Adam Gase. You know, if you go back to that New England game in 2018, where he made that big touchdown over Malcolm Butler.
Love that play.
So we saw him last year situationally being deployed in that role. So I want to see more of that. And exactly, if you deploy him in that role and you put Parker inside, he was dynamic in that slot role, you know, situationally last year. And we all know I'm eagerly anticipating the return of the 2018 version of Alvin Wilson in that deployed in that Julian Edelman role. Yeah, I am salivating.
Here's the kicker. This is what this presents. Most teams, right? Unlike our team. If they play man, their men don't travel. So if you take your number one receiver like Parker and you line him up inside, and now you're taking a guy that normally doesn't even play inside, and you tell him he got to take Parker everywhere he goes. Now he's at a disadvantage. So now you have a lesser guy outside on a guy that's more comfortable with speed. It's mismatches all over the field. Like Jones and Xavier Howard have proven that they can play inside and outside. They take their receiver wherever they go. But a lot of I can't think of many teams that have number one guys
other than New England.
Even other than New England, because even Jalen Ramsey doesn't do it.
Go look at the Jets. Their best corner is a slot corner. He doesn't play the boundaries, so they'll get killed. You go look at Levi. You go look at the Bills.
Wallace,
DeAndre White. Who's really going to threaten you there if you start running that? You're gonna eat. You're gonna feast, man. So yeah, I think.
When you have those Devontae Parkers, those guys, y'all probably gonna laugh with Matt Collins. Those big receivers, 6'3", 6'4" guys. No, man. Listen. And you put them in a slot role, that's more advantageous to them because then at that point, their catch radius, their entire catch radius is at the quarterback disposal. It's limited, is somewhat limited on the boundary because you got the sideline. You see what I'm saying? So it's more space when you line them up on the interior. So
I think a guy like Matt Collins is better down inside the 20 though.
Him too. And listen.
40 in is where he'll eat more better for you. You know what I mean? Because
if he can make it there,
he just got to stay healthy. That's my only issue with him.
BallGame.
I don't mind the guy.
BallGame. I've talked about this before about because of McNabb that the Eagles, if you want to claim a second team to me, the Eagles would be. Bro, I've watched this kid.
What are you talking about, McNabb?
Because the Eagles. Why the Eagles? Why I like Eagles? When you look at Matt, I've watched Matt Collins. I mean, let's be honest, bro. Arguably the worst wide receiver group in the league. Okay, they drafted Jalen Reagor. I get that, but when you look beyond that, man, Nelson Aguilar was their best receiver last year because everyone Deshaun got hurt. Alshon got hurt. Yeah, but that's been Matt Collins' MO since he entered the league to Philadelphia.
And what have I been consistent?
And what do we do? Are we into year 3 or year 4 right now?
This will be a third.
Hey.
Yeah, we're in year 3, right?
Listen, I never tried to question his durability concerns. Okay, I'm talking about this kid's physical skill set, and it's 6'6". Again, 225 pounds, bro, with 4.49, 4.51 speed. Again, like Kalen Ballage comparison physically. Those type of players don't come along every day in the NFL. So I'm just saying, you make an investment on the athlete. That's what you do. You make an investment, which they did, on the athlete, on his potential. Bring him in, get him in your program. Devontae Parker, and again, I'm not saying he's going to be Devontae Parker.
I think Gary Jennings has a better chance of making the team than he does.
Okay, well, we'll see. He was a third-round pick. Matt Collins was a third-round pick.
Buddy, Jamarcus Russell was a number 1 overall pick, bro. Okay. We're really going to go there, bro.
Okay, I'm just saying. I'm not going to be surprised. I'm telling you.
Don't worry, though. If he doesn't make the team, when he gets cut, the comment section is going to blow up for you because of the
and that's fine.
Havoc's waiting, bro. Havoc's waiting to chop it down.
I'm waiting for somebody to debate me on this kid's athleticism. That's what I'm waiting on.
No one's debating that.
Because that's what I'm making the investment in.
Yeah, bro.
That's what I'm investing in.
I'm telling you, bro. He's one of the most athletic guys I've ever seen that's been on the IR for the last 2 years, bro. Okay?
All right.
All right.
I hear you. That's fine. And that's legitimate. That is legitimate. You breathe on him and he's on IR for 3 weeks.
He is.
So
that's such a contact position. That's your problem. So
but we'll see, man.
So the last one and the most juicy one, and I'm sad Dougley is not here anymore to go over this. Either Rosen or Fitzpatrick will be traded.
Neither one.
So Jason, I see you got the wide-eyed with a little bit of a smirk. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts?
I mean, the thing is, when you add up the money that the Dolphins are spending on all their quarterbacks, it's still cheaper than so many situations. It's like unbelievable. Yep. So to have a guy like a Josh Rosen right now as your third stringer, technically, and you got Ryan Fitzpatrick, who should be your starter, and then you got Tua, who should be your apprentice, and you should learn. And Ryan Fitzpatrick has earned the right of first refusal. So if he starts off 2-1, great. If he starts off 4-3, all right. If it goes to 4-7, there's a problem. You put in Rosen before you put in Tua because you got to get value there. You got to see if you can muster up any type of trade situation, even if it's prior to a trade deadline. That would obviously mean that Ryan Fitzpatrick, the magic's over. But if the first thing to do in panic for Ryan Fitzpatrick, you can't trade Ryan Fitzpatrick because if He's doing well. Why would you trade him? If he's doing bad, who's trading for Ryan Fitzpatrick?
Right.
You need to create some sort of a spiked value for Josh Rosen. 3 games, 2-1, hundreds of yards, a couple touchdowns, limited picks could do that for Rosen. You trade him for a 4th. You recoup the loss for the 2nd that you got rid of for him. So does one of them get traded? Hopefully, in a perfect world, Fitz does okay, but the wheels fall off. Rosen plays 2 good games, 3 good games, gets traded, Tua comes in, and then we're celebrating like it's, the greatest thing in the world. So Rosen needs to perform before there's a value of a trade other than just getting a 7th round at the moment.
Yeah.
So there's my answer. I hope that we see Rosen before we get a value that he is a price tag on right now, which is basically nothing.
Bag of footballs right now.
There you
go.
go.
Where are you at? Where are you at with this? Because realistically,
I say from the beginning that I feel like where we are in terms of this rebuild, that they're gonna do their due diligence to see exactly what they got with everybody on the roster. So I don't see them just give. I mean, he's cheap, man. So I don't see them just jettisoning him. Just because at this point, you know what I mean. And Greer even said it himself. No guy has had the first 2 years into the league like Josh has had. So they want to give him an opportunity. They're gonna give him an opportunity. Whether that comes in the backup role or whatever it is. We're not looking. I don't think anybody right now. Maybe even the most diehard Dolphin fan got to understand that in a rebuild, bro, like you're legitimately not looking to go to the Super Bowl the very next year after your first official draft. So you got to kick the tires on everybody. And legitimately, last year wasn't what I consider to be the right time to be trying to say for a quarterback in particular whether a kid's got it or not. Right? It takes a little more than that, and they all struggled last year. So you come back fresh and you say, okay, now we got a whole other system in. We got an offensive coordinator that didn't do his job to the best of it, to the ability that they felt he was going to do. And grooming the kids, he spent his time with the old vet, but he didn't do nothing for the kids. So you bring in a Shane Gailey, a guy who's player friendly, a guy that actually loves the job, loves the idea and the job of coaching. And then you see, you know what I mean? So I do believe that Josh will still be on this roster, and I believe that even if they're doing it just to get his draft stock up, the fact of the matter is it creates a better situation for us as an organization, because if we can get his stock up, then we get something for him. But if we don't, if we just get rid of him, then we don't get anything, then we lose out on the end of that. And I just don't think that in a business like this, you got to be sure to at least recoup something that you can have something for later, you know what I mean, as opposed to just giving up on somebody and not getting anything at all. Like him, love him, hate him, it doesn't even matter at this point. The fact of the matter is that I think they're doing this from a business standpoint, and they're legitimately looking at the rough road that the kid has had, and they're just saying, like, why not give him a shot? Tua gonna need somebody to compete with anyway. You know what I'm saying? I mean, at the end of the day, Ryan Fitzpatrick ain't gonna be here much longer. So if Josh, if Tua wins the job and Josh decides that he doesn't have the aspiration to be a starter, then why not have another Matt Moore in the building?
And then when Ryan Fitzpatrick is retired, you have Malcolm Perry as your third-string quarterback.
Oh, man. That's funny. That is really funny.
All right, EM. Everyone's Joe B saying release EM.
I mean, do we really have to get – man, do we really have to talk about
you
Josh
got Fitzpatrick, too. You got Fitzpatrick, too, because –
I can't – I don't know what Doug – I wanted to address him directly about him thinking that Fitz could possibly be dealt at some point. I don't know what he's smoking, but only scenario I can see Fitz being dealt unless we get blown away from a playoff contending team and we are just like 0-7 in a playoff contending team, their starter goes down and they contact us as far as a trade. Anything beyond that, no, Fitz is going to be here probably this year and as well, I think, next year, because he's 37. We're seeing quarterbacks playing to 38, 39 years old. So why not bring him back to his backup next year? But anyway, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But as far as Josh Rosen is concerned, okay, when I sit and I objectively and I look at the possibility of Josh Rosen being retained on this roster, The only thing I can come up with is there is a level of uncertainty about the health of Tua Tagovailoa. Anything other than that, now I do somewhat agree from a business standpoint. You want to get a return on your second, as much as a return on your second round investment that you made, that you threw away to obtain this kid. Okay, I understand that. But at the end of the day, you made a top 5 investment. You have your future in place. And Josh Rosen, just his presence, and Reason mentioned this some streams back, you can imagine the potential of that the potential now. Now, I haven't heard anything about the quarterback room being toxic or you can imagine, but you can imagine how salty he is. This is back-to-back years this scenario has happened to him. And y'all keep saying, oh, it's tough on the kid. Oh, he didn't have a chance. That is ridiculous. This kid has given it to 2 franchises. Not 1, but 2. And he did nothing with it. Absolutely nothing. So when I hear, no disrespect, BallGame, no disrespect, Jason, and no disrespect to anybody else out there, in Fins Nation, but goddamn, 2 chances.
When somebody
what do you mean?
Usually when somebody said no disrespect, the disrespect is coming. And, in Arizona, Josh was actually supposed to sit the whole first year. You know that, right?
I don't want to hear that.
Sam Bradford got hurt. They were actually trying to do it right. Sam Bradford got hurt, and he got thrown into action.
Listen.
The stats. We always talk stats.
Listen.
We always talk stats.
No.
We do. Okay. We talk stats, right?
We talk stats, but we not only do we talk about stats, we talk about other things as well. What has happened with this kid is Arizona selected him, traded up to 10 and get him, and they got him in their program, and it was like they looked at him and it was like, damn, this kid is just not it. To move off of him in 1 year, and I don't give a damn about what coach they brought in. I don't give a damn. You know what I mean? And they hang on. They immediately moved off of him in 1 year, and the exact same scenario happened to him. When are y'all gonna wake up and realize this kid is just not that talented? When are y'all gonna realize that?
It would be different. I would agree with you. I would agree 100% if Kingsbury was a defensive guy.
Let me finish. I understand this conversation is uncomfortable. I get it. Hang on. I'm going to give you the floor. I can understand 1 year, but 2 years back to back. We need to wake up and stop coddling this kid. Where is it? This is a grown man. This is a grown man sport. He was given the keys to 2 franchises. He should have taken his craft more serious, prepared, worked tirelessly to improve himself so he can become the player that their respective fan base wanted. And he did not do it. And look at the reports that are resurfacing about this kid, about the game not being serious enough to him. He don't have the heart. He don't have it. He don't have the physical ability. He damn well don't have the heart. If you believe these reports. So stop coddling this kid. Please stop it. You got your franchise and Tua Tagovailoa, number 5 overall. Let's move on. Stop coddling him and let's just realize this kid is not that talented. It happens in the NFL. Teams miss on players every single year. It happens. Chalk this one up to the game and move on. And the quicker us as a fan base we realize that, the better off we'll be. This is ridiculous. I'm sorry. The floor is yours, gentlemen.
He'll be on the roster, so we ain't got to discuss it. At the end of the day, it's all opinionated, and I'm telling you, he's still gonna be on the roster. So they'll figure out what his worth is, and they'll move on smartly, and they'll make the best decisions for the organization and for him in terms of what his future gonna be. I'm gonna leave it at that because we've been going back and forth with this for a long time, and at this point right now, the only people know is Greer and Flores. You know what I mean? And
they're playing a good PR game. They're playing that PR game as well as you can possibly play it. Because Flores, they know it. Again, I go back to what Flores said last year. When they asked him, when they benched Josh Rosen, and I forget it was Omar Kelly, was one of those beat writers, and they inquired about how can you get a firm evaluation on Josh Rosen if he's not playing on Sundays. I quote, we already have a firm evaluation on Josh Rosen. We got him. We have him starting. We have him we see him 6 days a week. Okay. And also, we have the Arizona tape. Now, I asked the Dolphin fan base, you two gentlemen and Dolphin fan base, what was positive about that Arizona tape? Was anything positive about that in 2018? Absolutely not.
What was positive about Arizona as a whole?
I mean, hey, listen.
What?
At the end of the day, bro, look.
Bruce Arians left them for a reason. You understand that, right? He left too.
Well,
wasn't that Wilkes?
No, Bruce Arians was not their coach. That was Wilkes. Bruce Arians wasn't their coach. Trust me, if Bruce Arians was their coach, they wouldn't have selected him 10 overall. I can guarantee you that. They had a young, defensive-minded, inexperienced coach who made the biggest mistake of his career.
He got fired. That was one of the reasons he got. Yeah,
he got fired the next year. Exactly. When he signed off on that trade, when he signed that card and sent it in to.
Have you guys watched the video? Have you guys watched the draft video of when they drafted Josh Rosen and they made the call? When the GM talks to Rosen, that was a Wilkes pick, eh? Like Wilkes pushed them to make that draft.
It got him fired.
Yeah, it didn't help the situation.
Man, their whole situation was bad, man. They had injuries out the yang. I mean, they had the most unfortunate. Listen, listen, man. It's already proven. The last two that year in particular was probably one of the worst that the Arizona Cardinals had in terms of injuries and all sorts of stuff. So to have him in the midst of that when he no possibility of playing. Sam Bradford was their guy. They had all sorts of money in Bradford, and when Bradford got hurt, he got thrown into duty, and you do the best you can with the circumstances you dealt. The worst O-line, all this stuff is verifiable. At the end of the day, the kid gonna get an opportunity. So it is what it is.
Why did Kyler Murray?
Yeah, Murray was sacked 49 times, and Rosen was sacked 45.
Why did Kyler Murray? Why did he flash in that same?
Kyler Murray was sacked last year 49, and the year before Rosen was sacked 45.
So I ask you, why was Kyler Murray able to succeed in that exact same toxic environment? They brought in one new
starter quarter. He's a better talent.
Well, listen, that goes back to my point about Josh Rosen. This kid is just not.
Yeah, but you know what the problem with the ball game? You know what the problem? Here's the problem with when people make that argument about the whole new offense. The problem with an air raid compared to what they were doing the year before, primarily with an air raid, a lot of the routes you need time to develop.
Right.
And what's crazy is I saw a stat today, Kyler Murray last year, and this is not based on the O-line, this is based on the player. Kyler Murray took 49 sacks, and I still think he was the third or fourth slowest quarterback to get rid of the ball. So what I mean by that was I think his average release time for him to get rid of the average time for him was like 4.11 seconds.
Yeah.
I was watching a Daniel Jones thing today where it's talking about Daniel Jones was about like 3.1 seconds.
You can afford the process a little slower when you as athletically gifted as Kyler Murray is.
Well,
you can buy yourself some time. You can buy yourself some time to move around and extend the play.
Well, and hold on a sec. I'll say this too. I think he also has a stronger arm than Rosen, and I think he has more arm talent than Rosen. And that's not a knock on Rosen. I think Kyler is top 10 in the league in arm talent. He can throw off platform, any angle. He can, he can make improvisation throws, and he's accurate when he does it. Like I think that's not a knock on Rosen. I think that's just how good Kyler.
Agreement from me. They're two different levels of athlete.
Yeah, like I wanted us to draft Kyler because I was.
And it goes back to what I said, and it goes back to what I've been consistent about since day one about Rosen. He's just not as talented as these other guys. He's not Kyler Murray. He's not Tua Tagovailoa. He's just not. Just own up to it, and just move on. He won't. Again, like I said, to answer the question, barring the only reason why I can see him potentially remaining on his roster this year is there's uncertainty about the health of Tua Tagovailoa. Anything other than that, I think they'll move on at some point.
All right, Jason, did you we're just going to go over a couple of news bits here. You want to get out of here? You got some stuff?
No, I got a couple more minutes. In terms of the whole Rosen situation. I mean, look, retrospectively, a lot of us can go back to that draft and say we were happy, we weren't happy. Look, when the trade ticket went in and the Cardinals traded up to leapfrog the Dolphins and they selected Rosen, I was very happy. The draft pick that we had, you could say whatever you want for years to come that we ended up with Minkah Fitzpatrick, what have you, whatever. Last year or the year after that, when you traded for Rosen, I didn't necessarily want to bring him in. I wanted to use that second round pick to get maybe an edge rusher, But fact of the matter is, you brought him in. Did the experiment work with bringing in Josh Rosen? No, because now it's Tua Tagovailoa's team. Whenever he does step on the field, nobody wants to see Josh Rosen in 3 years as a Miami Dolphin. That's the truth of it. But from a business standpoint, if the Dolphins are going to make any type of a win or recoup that trade with the Cardinals, they already lost it right now. The trade is a loss unless there is a reason for Rosen to be forced to play and has to play well. Mm-hmm. And if he plays well, it creates a good positive problem. Do I want to see Rosen play? No, I want to see Ryan Fitzpatrick go 10-6 and take this team to a playoff win. And then I want to see Tua Tagovailoa in 2001 with the continuity of a healthy line. And maybe if you got 1 game, 2 games of Josh Rosen in there, he was traded for a 3rd and a 5th. Is that going to happen? Probably not. I agree with EM that he's just not that great of a quarterback. He's really not that great. Fitzpatrick beat him out for the job last year in preseason, and he just looked uncomfortable. If he had everything working for him, if a perfect scheme was there, maybe he would have had a decent time in Arizona. But the fact is, Rosen has a good life. I wish him well. I don't think he's going to be in the future plan for the Dolphins, but the Dolphins do need him to be a good backup quarterback, a good second, third, whatever string quarterback. And if he gets the chance to be on the field, if he doesn't make the most of that 1 quarter, 1 game, 1 month, then his career as a starter is over. He has to prove that he can go on the field and play.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So just before we get these last 2 tidbits, because we've spent way too much time on that. We're almost at 2.5 hours here. Guys, I just want to go over, if you go to our Twitter right now, @Inside the NFL, the pinned tweet at the top, we're giving away a Tua Tagovailoa jersey. We're celebrating we're almost at 1,000 YouTubers. I believe we're about 45-ish away. So basically what you do is you go to our Twitter, you go find that pinned tweet, you retweet that tweet, and you follow us on Twitter. That's worth 1 entry. If you subscribe to us on YouTube, that's worth 2 entries. So what you want to do is you want to either DM us on Twitter or comment in the thread with a screenshot showing you're subscribed, and automatically that'll give you 2 entries. And then the third way to enter is follow us on Instagram and like the post about the giveaway. Again, our Twitter @Inside the NFL, or Instagram @Inside the NFL, and our YouTube channel where you're already here, so you know what it is. So the winner will be announced Friday, July 31st, on our usual Friday show. So let's just get into a couple quick news tidbits I wanted to cover here, but we were waiting on Great One. And
talking about the show of me beating your Friday show of me beating
him
down.
Yeah, because he wants you back. He wants that rematch. So right now, I just want to go over these 2 quick little tidbits. So Barry Jackson put out an article last night, and he said, when realistically can quarterback Tua Tagovailoa overtake Ryan Fitzpatrick? A source in touch with the Dolphins said that while the great likelihood is that Ryan Fitzpatrick will open the season as a starter, the Dolphins are open-minded about playing Tagovailoa if he shows command of the offense and consistently impresses in practice, and if the team isn't performing well under Fitzpatrick. They aren't going into the season with a plan to definitely redshirt Tua, barring some health setback. One team source said Tua Tagovailoa appears very confident in himself, which he says is a good thing here. And agent Drew Rosenhaus, who doesn't represent the player, said on his weekly show this week that he expects Tagovailoa to be starting by week 4. So, guys, now that we know there are no plans to redshirt this kid at all, me and EM have talked about it almost ad nauseum about how we believe between how this offense is tailored for him, how good of an athlete he is. We believe that he's going to, if it wasn't for the last 6 games Fitzpatrick had of the 2019 season and, earning that right to basically be the starter in day 1 in his familiarity with Chan Gailey's scheme, we think it would basically all be but a foregone conclusion. Tua would probably win the job heading into the regular season. Our own personal concerns for the offensive line aside or not. because, Brian Flores is saying, especially when it comes to the quarterback situation last year, we're going to field the players that give us the best chance to win. So, Jason, we'll start with you. What is your thoughts about what's being said right here?
I mean, look, regardless of what's being said before anything is happening on the field, you got to see what's going on with the offensive line. You can't put a franchise quarterback, I don't care any health risk, I don't care first, second, fourth pick, overall, fifth pick. This is the 32nd best or worst offensive line in the league last year. They were ranked 32nd, 154 quarterback hits, too many. So what you really need to do is make sure that Tua is looking great and healthy in camp. That's number one. If he is, but the offensive line is Swiss cheese, you can't put a guy back there. You can't do it and risk him. So it goes beyond how he looks. It goes beyond how – I mean, look, what we want to hear is that he is looking as good as possible. And that's terrific. But then you got to see what's going on with the rest of the team. I mean, I can't say that he's going to start a game before you see how this brand new offensive line meshes together, because you can't look at this to – play against Joe Burrow in week 15 or 13 or whatever it is. You can't look at it to play week 17 against Buffalo, the last game to go into 2020. You got to look at it when he's ready. Mm-hmm. That's when NFL clubs have success, when they draft a quarterback and they put him in when he is ready. In most cases, that's what happened with Mahomes. That's what happened with Aaron Rodgers. That's what happened with other situations, in history. How often do you have a guy who comes right on in and just electrifies the world like a Lamar Jackson? It's not often. Not often. So we need continuity. We need 14, 15 years of a quarterback, not 3 years of, what could have been, but it happened too soon or something, the wheels fell off. So time is very much important with this, and patience.
BallGame, where are you at with this?
I think he should sit. Mm-hmm. We went all this time to
throw him
waiting on him to show up, and and not knowing what we got in this O-line. I think it'll be the worst business decision ever, putting him out there. So I've said that from the beginning. I didn't want to. I didn't think at 5. I thought we could have got. Maybe he probably still would have been there somewhere if we'd have moved around. But at the end of the day, now you got to protect him, and you got to protect him from himself too, because we don't know what this O-line look like. So I don't care how confident he is. I'm not confident that a bunch of 5 guys that have never played together are going to be, up to speed to protect them. They got to prove that first, and then you can plug the quarterback in, because we're talking long time playability, not just this year. Hell, as far as I'm concerned, if we don't win but 7 or 8 games, that's better than what we did last season, and that's progress for me, because I believe we never done this rebuild. Everybody trying to rush through it, talking about trying to get back to the playoffs, but the playoffs ain't going nowhere.
Agreed.
Preach, bro.
Agreed.
So I think it would be a horribly bad decision to play him without knowing, like Jason said, what we got in this offensive line and all of the other components around it. Because if you just plug in the quarterback and everything else is already gelled and clicking, it should be that much easier.
So let me ask you, BallGame. Let me ask you, BallGame. With your experience with the game of football, being around it, coaching it, etc., Drew Rosenhaus saying, "Okay,
he should stay in his lane, man."
Okay, but let me ask you this: Week 4, okay?
Yeah.
Do you think you're even going to be able to get a good enough gauge on how good that offensive line is by Week 4?
No.
Generally, that's a midseason thing to me.
Listen. So
at least,
because even in high school, right? When we brought up in the summer, and we brought up sophomores and juniors backfilling the seniors, we didn't know really what we had offensive line wise and who the guys truly were until like week 7, right? And we only played 10 games, so you know what I'm saying. So that's 3/4 of the season already gone before you actually figure out or say exactly, all right, this is the group that I know I can trust. This is what we can do with them, because we know that they're capable of being able to do this to the best of their abilities. 4 games in, man, we don't know anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like real talk. You talking about having Hunt, it's just no. That's a bad decision. And Drew running out there, jumping out there on this like this, man. He's supposed to say stuff to push his client, but at the same time, he's not logically thinking about how hard it is to get those guys up front to jail. The offensive line is by far the hardest and most difficult position to solidify and gel because some guys just they look good on paper and they look good standing next to each other. They just don't work well together. So you have to have someone that really knows the nuances of all these guys' strengths and weaknesses, blending them to compensate for each other to get that to work. And if you rush that, it's catastrophic for everyone. The entire offense suffers. Your offense is only as good as the line protecting the quarterback. So if we rush it, we're going to ruin him. I would say stick with Rosen, stick with Fitz, stick with Ruddy. I don't care, but don't put that kid out there until we have those pieces, that most valuable piece, gelled and properly right. Then you do it. And if the fans are screaming for it, then the fans really don't care about what he could possibly mean to us, and they need to get their heads together and get their heads out of their butts and understand what football is about. You build the trenches first. You let the trenches solidify, and then you can put your your last piece in place, and then see what you got. But don't put him out there to like willy-nilly all over the place and then take the risk of losing him.
Agreed.
Rosenhaus that, man. He shouldn't even be talking. He should just stay in his lane. You got your contract for your clients. Shut your mouth. You're not a football guy. You're a numbers guy. So do numbers and just shut up.
He knows how to get his name in the press, though.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to talk about Tua, but if he talks about Tua, Drew Rosenhaus is talking.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
So,
EM, what are your thoughts?
Well, I've been consistent about I'm comfortable with either scenario. If Tua comes in, again, the health is the most important thing, should be prioritized with Tua in terms of the approach of implementing him into the offense. With that being said, I'm comfortable with either scenario because everybody keeps killing and poo-pooing on our offensive line, and they should. You know what I mean? They were historically bad last year. But people keep, forgetting about the incremental improvements that they made over the second half of the season last year. Now you transition to an offseason where you brought in an immediate upgrade in Eric Flowers. You brought an immediate upgrade with Ted Karras. I mean, I don't think it's really that big of I don't think it's going to be that big of a stretch to make the assumption that I understand that, but that's what you have training camp for.
Sure.
And that's why you have an extended training camp for this year.
Well, the problem is we might not have
this time we're already in training camp.
Timing has never been on the Dolphins side, and this is a bad timing. If COVID wasn't around, this would be the greatest training camp to witness live because of the battles. But unfortunately, we don't get that.
They're being robbed of that, and they're being robbed of all this valuable time that they could be. All the OTAs and all that stuff. That's where you build your chemistry with guys.
Well, that's why the players don't want preseason games because they want that just training camp extended up until the regular season.
Right.
That's why they don't want preseason games. So with that, so making the assumption that they don't have preseason games, the training camp will be extended. And again, I go back to what Brian Flores says. He said you can get a firm evaluation on a player other than him starting on Sundays. So that's why you have practice. You see them 6 days a week. So with that being said, I'm comfortable with either scenario. Whether Tua, it's just going to be so hard to leave Tua if he is that much better than everybody else in that quarterback room. And I do not think Flores, for example, if the offensive line doesn't perform, and it hasn't improved the way we think it has on paper, okay, I do not think they're going to put him out there. I really don't. But with that being said, if our offensive line on paper, it should be improved. It should be significantly improved upon the 32nd ranked over offensive line in the NFL last year. It should be. So with that being said, it's going to be hard to leave Tua if he is showing in practice, like this article, like they highlighted in this article. If this kid is out there and he's consistently displaying that he's head and shoulders above everybody else, it's going to be extremely difficult to leave that kid on the bench. And as much as I love Fitzpatrick and the respect that I have for his season that he had last year, and I do think Fitzpatrick did earn the start. He should be the starter this year. But Tua is just so much far superior physically in really every aspect than especially everybody in that quarterback room. It's going to be hard to leave him on the bench. But again, I'm comfortable with either scenario. Whether they implement Tua. Go ahead.
No, you know what? Tua to me, I start the 2 o'clock, 2001 to 2036.
Yep.
That's when I start the 2 o'clock. If it starts before, I'm gonna be watching games nervous, and I start watching games nervous. You know, I think that needing Tua to come in and begging firm will be a lot nerves inducing than to have a 2020 that just happens, a 2021 that the team is solidified, built, and then Tua week 1 comes in and just lights the world on fire, but doesn't have to try too hard because it's a great team around. That's what I want when the time is right.
I'm comfortable with either scenario.
As long as they win long term.
So the last thing, little tidbit we'll go over before we get out of here, and I appreciate all you guys for spending this time with me. It's just a small thing. It's, again, we went over about how we got that sanitation accreditation. We were the first NFL and only NFL team to get that for Hard Rock. But now, again, we're the front runner and leading the way. We've gone out and, Flores said they tried to think outside the box in the situation. So they've added an infectious disease specialist from Baptist Health to the organization's medical staff. So they continue to try and not only protect themselves from themselves, their fans, and the team, and prepare to protect them from COVID-19 as the season and training camp approaches, but they've also kind of once again led the way, been the four leaders in doing something like this. So I just want to go through you guys quickly. What are your thoughts in terms of, them taking these kind of steps and thinking outside the box like no other team is doing? We'll start with you. We'll start with you, EM. EM? All right, Jason, knock yourself out.
No, we got a situation with the Dolphins front office. They really do everything terrific outside the business of football, the business of fans, the business of customer service. They're really top notch, probably one of the best in show, in all sports, not just football. So if you're going to go into that organization as a fan, as a patron, whether it's watching football or watching anything that place allows, you're going to feel protected. They're doing a terrific job, even if it's prior to COVID, environmental things where they're just limiting plastic and they're recycling. Just everything they're doing is really a greater good. So got to tell you, very proud to be a Dolphin fan, what they're doing on the field, but not to sound like cheesy or anything, but everything they do off the field just makes me more even prouder to be a Dolphin fan. Because stuff like this, if you do go to a Dolphin game, if we're allowed to be in there, probably the safest place on the 32 places where you can watch, or 31, whatever it is, you can watch a game will be Hard Rock Stadium. So kudos to the Dolphins and their upper management staff.
Agreed. BallGame, what are your thoughts?
I have to echo what Jason said, man. I mean, the fact that we're cognizant enough about the environment around us and doing things proactively tends to lead me to believe that it's really about the players and about putting these guys in the right mindsets of safety minded, and putting them at ease to know that, the organization really does care about them, and I think that matters the most, because one thing's for sure, people don't want to go to work, man, if they don't feel that they appreciate it, and you don't get much out of people if they don't feel they appreciate it either. So the fact that we've jumped out here and be the first ones to do this without having to be prompted to do it,
right,
speaks volumes for who we are as an organization and who's in charge of our organization.
Right.
Ross and the team he's assembled, man, they're spot on, man, and it like Jason said, it makes me proud to be a Dolphin.
For sure.
100%. So.
All right, guys. I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your night and coming on tonight. I know this was kind of all over the place. It's a great one. didn't end up showing up. Shout out to him. He's got just some personal issues that ended up arising. Shout out to Dougley for coming through. I guess EM's having technical difficulties. Jason and BallGame, I just want to appreciate you guys both for coming through and taking 2.5 hours out of your night to roll.
You're welcome, man. It's all good.
No, my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me, dude.
Appreciate you guys, and we'll have obviously both of you guys back on very soon, especially you, BallGame. I don't know what's going down on Friday, but I know
I'm gonna take more EM money. That's what's gonna happen.
Yo, hold on, I gotta verify because I'm gonna put it in the thumbnail. You're only playing cash games, right? We're
That's
at that
it,
level?
man.
All right,
Ain't no more freebies.
All right.
I gotta watch this game. I want to do some color commentary. I just
Bro, come on. I color commentary by myself, bro.
Well, let's do it. You do a little play-by-play. I'll do a little color. And
Bro, last stream was 5 hours, bro.
I don't have that much time.
Yeah, I know. But okay. Well, I appreciate you guys for coming on, man. And
yeah, for sure.
Well, BallGame. I guess I'll see you Friday, brother.
Indeed.
All right, brother. All right, Jason. Thanks for coming on, brother. And I hope you have a good night.
You're the man. Be well, dude. Take care for the.
So I believe Jason was saying fins up there too. Fins up, Jason. Obviously, my bad. Everyone, appreciate y'all for coming through, for showing mad love once again. I guess EM just got technical difficulties, so he's not going to be coming back on. I'll close it out myself. Guys, we're going to be back Friday night. I guess we're round 3. Third time's a charm. Maybe that's what I'll call it. BallGame versus EM, third time's a charm. And this time it's only for cash. So, guys, if you guys want to come through and see that, I mean, that's always a good time when EM starts losing it. So, guys, come through. Watch DouglieDoWrong. We'll be back on Monday after that. We'll give you more details on Friday. Again, guys, if you want to enter the giveaway for the Tua Tagovailoa jersey, head over to our Twitter, pinned tweet at the top, retweet it, follow us on, and subscribe to us on YouTube, and that's where 2 entries, and then follow and like the last post on our Instagram regarding the giveaway. And then that's it, guys. Appreciate y'all for coming out. Until next time, as always, y'all already know what it is. It's fins up all day, every day.